Good morning, Chairman.
Well, good morning, everyone. Nice to see you. And welcome to this formal meeting of the Children and Culture Scrutiny Committee. My name is Councillor Brenda Collier, and I'm the chairman of this committee. On my right is my vice chairman, Councillor Stuart Grantham, and on my left is our Democratic Services Officer, Jess Wasser-Yates. And also present in the council chamber is our scrutiny officer, Tracy Johnson. I would like to begin with a health and safety announcement. There is no fire drill planned this morning. In the event of the fire alarm going off or sounding, please leave the chambers through the rear doors at the back of the chamber, that way, and leave the building through the reception into the front car park where you will get further instruction as to where we should go. Thank you. This meeting is being streamed live via the County Council's website, and all your comments will remain accessible online after the meeting and can be reported by the media. With this in mind, I would like to welcome members of the public and press watching our meeting today. And can I remind everyone to ensure their mobiles, laptops and tablets are on silent for the duration of this meeting. The hearing loop is now activated. Requests to speak will be collated by the Vice Chairman. If you wish to speak, can you please raise your hand and he will make notes as who's wanting to speak today. Thank you. And when invited to speak, please would you press the button on your microphone unit to make it live, and please speak directly into the microphone so that we can all hear you nice and loud. Thank you. When you've finished, please remember to switch your mic off again. Right, we will now move on to the formal agenda. Apologies for absence and replacements. Jess, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chairman. We've received apologies from Paul Brewster, the Church representative. We've also received apologies from Councillor Maria Hume, and we have Councillor Barry Day to replace her today. And I'd also like to note apologies from Tara Jones, the Assistant Director of Children's Safeguarding, and Will Mason, the Head of Culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you. Declaration of Councillors' interests. Members of the committee are reminded that they only need to declare any relevant interests which have not been declared on their declaration of pecuniary interest form. If you become aware of an interest at any point during the meeting, you can declare it then. Any interest declared will be recorded in the minutes. Do any members wish to declare any interests? Okay, thank you. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting of the Children and Culture Scrutiny Committee held on the 17th of October 2025. This item is to approve and sign the minutes of the last meeting of the Children's and Culture Scrutiny Committee held on the 17th of October 2025 as a correct record. The minutes can be found on pages 7 to 14 of the agenda pack. Do I have a proposer? And a seconder, please. Councillor Parkinson and Councillor Robinson. Thank you. We will now vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. That's a correct record. Right. Just before we move on, I'd like to just make a mention of, on Saturday, Councillor Paul Locke and myself were very privileged to go along to foster carers party, Christmas party at Navenby. And what a pleasure it was to go there and see these wonderful people that do this fostering. I've done fostering, I know how hard it is. And I do admire them so much, and the patience and the love and care they were showing to our children is marvellous. And those little children, they just so enjoyed themselves, and some of the adults as well. But it was a wonderful opportunity to go and thank these people, which we did. We went round and sat and spoke with the mums and the dads, carers, and the children as well, and interacted with them, and it was a lovely opportunity. So I say a great big thank you to all the foster carers, wherever they are in this country and in the world, in fact, for the wonderful, wonderful job they do. And we do need more, so please keep talking about this, because it's such an important role for our children, our future generations. Thank you. Just to make the committee aware, I'm proposing to hold a 10-minute comfort break before item 8, so we can all go out for about 10 minutes. Moving on, are there any Executive Council announcements from Councillor Natalie Oliver, Executive Council for Children's Services? Yes, thank you, Natalie.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to second your comments surrounding our foster carers. They really do the most amazing job, and we really would be stuck as a council without them. They really are selfless, and it is amazing what they do. Good morning, everybody. We have a full and really important agenda this morning, and I'm very much looking forward to your discussions and your feedback. When I took this role, I spoke with staff about the need for us to work with real urgency and pace to address some of the challenges that the council is facing, and I just want to take a moment to just thank them. They have responded with huge dedication and commitment, and I hope that you can see from the range of papers today that we have a great deal to be proud of, with innovative solutions coming forward in our highest risk areas. I'm also delighted to share that since our last meeting, Lincoln Castle has been awarded the Gold Accolade by Visit England, recognising the outstanding quality of the visitor experience. This is really a proud moment for Lincolnshire, which I'm sure you would all agree. Over the recent weeks, I've been out visiting our frontline teams to see more of their work firsthand and to understand the impact that they are having. It has been a real privilege to hear case studies of children and families in Lincolnshire who have been supported to thrive because of the efforts of our teams. Next week, I will be visiting one of our children's homes in Louth, which has recently been inspected by Ofsted. The report is not yet published, but I can say that we are absolutely delighted with the outcome in all areas, and the feedback on the quality of care of the children was honestly totally overwhelming. So I just wanted to share those bits with you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Thank you very much. Are there any announcements from the senior officers, please? Heather, do we have anything? Okay. And Nicole? Okay, thank you very much. So item 5, culture service activity and impact. This item is on pages 15 to 20 of the agenda pack and sets out an overview of the activity delivered by the culture service and its impact. This item was requested by the committee at our meeting on the 25th of July 2025. So the actions required by the committee are to review this report and seek assurance on the activity and impact delivered by the culture service. The report will be presented by James Sharple, Business Transformation Manager, Culture. We also have Nicole Hilton, Assistant Director, Communities, and Charlotte Lane, Culture Service Manager, in attendance to help answer any questions. Over to you, James. Thank you.
Thank you. So just wanted to cover off, basically set the scene of our mission for cultural services. So our mission is to drive tourism and showcase Lincolnshire's rich heritage to the world, utilising all the kind of mechanisms through our stories and interpretation, activities, events to engage the public and visitors to Lincolnshire, to enrich them with those stories. You'll note as well around our impact, which I will cover off some detail later on in the presentation, but our using the Association of Independent Museum nationally recognised toolkit, we've looked at all of the elements of our kind of service delivery, and it shows that we generate over £14 million worth of economic benefit for local tourism and businesses. That does encompass sort of the total visitor volume, retail value, kind of commercial activity, as well as kind of the staff as well. The fact that us as a service, we have a kind of a diverse service that includes sort of library services as well as our cultural heritage attractions and archives, which allows us to connect communities and empower them with history and knowledge to share within generations, which obviously does help us achieve positive change within those communities. And as well as that economic impact, we do support businesses with appropriate skills through the library services and access to that information, as well as skills within our learning programme that sits across our sites as well. Next slide. So the fact that we've, as a service, we generate income to offset our expenditure. So we have adopted a cultural enterprise business model where we look all at our business activity to generate that income that drives investment within the service and offsetting the cost of running it. So as you see here, we generate sort of a sustainable service, which is 80% of our operating costs within the income that we receive, which is exceeds massively the national average that we have looked into. There are operating costs as well. Against that is over 3 million. And I said we generate 80% against that. The income, as broken down here, as you can see that we have various strands of income that come in through the service. So the admissions income through ticketing, mainly that will be through Lincoln Castle and Battle of Britain Memorial Visitor Centre, is £1.2 million worth of income. And then obviously we have the other commercial activity through retail, cafe, third-party income that we run ourselves, as well as we actively pursue external grants to leverage money from partnership organisations, the Friends groups, as well as Arts Council England National Lottery Fund, to leverage in funding for specific projects and to run our some actually key activity, such as some of the learning programme activity. We actively promote across our free sites that are free to enter donations, and you'll see that we generate just a little over £40,000 of donations that people give in, which obviously goes against our bottom line. The economic impact. This, as I said, is used by an industry standard tool that's been developed. As you can see, the fact that we have broken that down on site-based to demonstrate how each of our sites contribute to that economic impact, which totals £14.8 million. We have broken down, as you'll see, specific activity because of we've looked at the individual value that brings to the local economy around live at Lincoln Castle concerts. So the fact that generates £4 million worth of benefit for the local communities and businesses. So on that basis, not just our kind of core offer we have within the service, that we actually have multiple activities and events. Sorry, next slide. Sorry. There's multiple activities and events, so we kind of diversify and engage different audiences through those. So anything from the Castle live concerts, bringing in internationally renowned artists, through working with national, international institutions such as the Natural History Museum, British Museum, V&A, obviously with the reputation and name that brings, and we are bringing those significant collections, stories and links to our own county into Lincolnshire for local people to experience, as well as Castle Illuminated, various supported local festivals through Sausage Festival and local runs, as well as Scout events, and working with the university to hold graduations. So it is incredibly diverse. Next slide would just wanted to provide an overview of the fact of our level of engagement. So we have over 1 million visits to all of our venues. The fact that as the Castle Grounds has a free-to-enter grounds offer, the fact that we have an ability, especially during summer months, and fantastic grounds where people can reside and just chill out, basically. 660,000 people visit through the Castle Grounds themselves, and that's on top of the ticket visitors that we generate, obviously, income through. The fact that in libraries, the fact that we've got 2.3 million items issued through the libraries, and our web pages, which we host independently, get 2.5 million views and engagement through, and obviously we put through our stories interpretation as well as promotions of our activities and events through that. I'm not going to touch on too much of the Lincoln development here. This is just to provide a bit of a summary of the fact that us as a service, we are investing in the fact that, and the council is investing in the fact that we are impact as a community, and our economic impact is important to revitalise and keep that momentum of investing in that those buildings and stories. The museum was built in 2005. It's had 20 years of kind of no investment, so we wanted to make sure that we proposed a project that would see growth and development for future generations. So the fact that we've had that £1.7 million investment in the service to drive that change in tourism growth for us. But Charlotte's going to be covering off the museum development project, so I'll let her cover those. It's still a thunder. The venue hire, we don't just operate sort of internally of ourselves. Some of the events that I mentioned earlier, they are externally hires where we will work with communities to host those events, and they'll hire them. We have facilities as well that's within the museum. We've got a newly refurbished auditorium. We've developed a commercial package that is going to actively promote those facilities for local business use and community use as well. So they'll be able to use a 120-seater auditorium with modern technology of video conferencing, as well as that will be used, that we've previously done, obviously we're closed at the moment, where university would have TED Talks, lectures. We work with local book societies for book launches with internationally renowned authors. So it's a complete spectrum of events in there, ranging from our other facilities that in the castle, where we have conferencing facilities for all businesses to access. And lastly within this is our growth of the wedding services. So we run, especially within the Usher Gallery, it's a venture that we work in collaboration with the registration and ceremony services for promotion and growth of the wedding ceremonies as a high tier offer that's above and beyond that kind of lower basic offer. People can pay a little bit more and get an experience of accessing the Usher, which we have seen growth against those. So that concludes my presentation, if there are any questions.
Thank you very much for that very full report there. Very interesting. Thank you. So do we have any questions, please? Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for that presentation. Absolutely fantastic. I love your drive and passion. What you're doing is outstanding. Hopefully next year you'll be able to double all those figures. Just keep going. But what are you looking at the weaker sort of like culture and heritage sort of sites? Have you got a plan to try and bring them up to get them better as well? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The Battle of Britain Memorial Visitor Centre at the moment as an income generation site. We're actually reinterpreting the lobby space at present. So we're uplifting the current offer there. So there's a greater interpretation and offer for the visitors going into that space. Museum of Lincolnshire Life, we're reviewing what additional development we can do within a 5-year forward plan over where we could leverage in additional monies and reinterpreting our story. So yes, within our forward plan, we are looking at that investment of the different areas.
Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you. Reading the report, I understand, like you said, the term driving tourism. Could you tell me, is there any joint working with the Lincoln Cathedral as well, to bring more tourism in, or are we just concentrating on the castle? Because obviously, people, if they come to see the castle, think, oh, well, what's nice built? But, are we actually promoting the cathedral as in a whole with the castle?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Yes, we actually have a local stakeholder group that encompasses all of the major kind of infrastructure organisations. So Ben Anderson from the Cathedral sits on that group. So we collaboratively work with them in terms of our profiling of all the activities, events, and how we work together on complementing each other's programmes within that. So ranging from the City of Lincoln's support of opening of Greyfriars to Lincoln Big and the city, the fact that they're running Visit Lincoln now. We collaboratively work together on how we grow the pie, for want of a better word, so we all get a bigger proportion of it for sort of now and into the future as well. So we are looking at kind of what that programming would look like next year and the year after.
Thank you. Did you want to come in there, Nicole?
Thank you, Chair. It was, I think, just to remind the committee that there couldn't be no more powerful a representation of our partnership with the Cathedral than the Magna Carta. of which obviously at the castle we host the Magna Carta and display it in the vault, but it's actually a document that is owned wholly by the cathedral. So it's the most perfect example of a partnership.
Can I just come in there before we go to the next question, please? I've recently been with several people from outside our county, and in a couple of cases they don't know anything about Lincoln at all. I found that strange. Is there more we can do there to promote our city and what we got here? Because we were really trying to promote it as much as we could.
I'll take that one if I may, Chair. I mean, obviously we have in culture all of the assets of which we shout about loud and proudly, and they are now obviously award-winning. But tourism actually sits within the economic development portfolio, so that would sit in the growth committee, but we do work really, really strongly and very, very closely with that team because they both form part of place. But as always, I'm sure there's more that we could do in that area.
Thank you very much, because we have such a great city, a great county. Okay, Councillor Cleaver, please.
Thank you, Chairman. If I may, I'd just pick up on what was said about Lincoln Cathedral. I have to say one of the most wonderful events I've ever been to as a county councillor was the Lincolnshire Schools Music annual concert event, which was held at Lincoln Cathedral. Absolutely amazing. And it grieves me that the cathedral isn't used more for those sort of cultural events, particularly musical events, because we do not have a large concert hall in this city, in fact in this county. And therefore the cathedral is the obvious place for putting those sort of things on. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that. In terms of your paper, yes, clearly everything you're doing is being done well and thriving, and we rejoice in that. I just got a few points there I'd like to make. The castle buildings, you mentioned that you're covering 80% of operating costs. Clearly, there's a high cost of maintaining grade 1 listed buildings, particularly of that magnitude. So I'd like to ask you whether you're assured that the future budget coverage for the maintenance of those buildings is satisfactory. Because clearly we don't want any nasty surprises as a council, do we, in having sudden big bills and surveyors saying you need to spend £500,000 renewing this or renewing that. Secondly, there is obviously a point about this being Lincoln-centric to a large proportion. And we are a very large county. Lincoln is 100,000 people. Lincolnshire is 780,000 people. And obviously there are concerns from those outside Lincoln that this council is not ambitious enough in its cultural programme. I would particularly like to draw two things to attention, which I hope you can make some commitment about. One is the re-establishment of the Stamford Museum, and also the preservation within Stamford and within Lincolnshire of the archive of Britain's oldest published newspaper, which is the Stamford Mercury, which has been in constant publication since at least 1715, and has its independent archive, and it's important that our archive remains within the county and is publicly accessible. And finally, whilst on this subject, can I also make a plea for the Luttrell Psalter? Is it possible to have it brought back to Lincolnshire and be put on display? For those who don't know what it is, it's an early 1300s manuscript which was created in Lincolnshire by the Lord of the Manor of Irnham, which is now in South Kesteven, and it is one of the richest sources for visual depictions of everyday life in medieval England. It's absolutely beautiful. So I think we really should have that coming back to Lincolnshire, don't you? Thank you.
Just a point of information, Chairman, before James comes in. I didn't put Councillor Cleaver up to that question. We didn't collude beforehand. I can honestly say this is the Luttrell Psalter. It wasn't me.
Yeah. So picking on your first point, then, assurance around property costs. I suppose the only comment I can make on that is our buildings are managed by one public estate via the County Council's property team. So I would defer that question to our property colleagues either through this or outside the meeting to confirm. So I mean that on that the Stamford Museum museum store. I mean that is obviously a site that we currently have as part of our portfolio that we are aware that the collections are there as well. We've been working with Stamford Town Council on solutions for that. For both the collections and the building. It's obviously got an intrinsic link in terms of its link to the library building as well, which we commission and it's run by Greenwich Leisure Limited. So we, all I can give is assurance that we're working towards a solution for that site. And the last point around the Luttrell Psalter is, yes, I agree with you. Yeah, it's definitely an important document, and we will obviously explore all options we can do for bringing any significant documents and any significant stories to Lincolnshire to display that for the public.
Thank you very much. We've got several people waiting for questions, but I think Nicole wants to just come back again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to give a little bit more detail around the property, James is absolutely right. We operate a corporate landlord model, so the majority of the responsibility falls with our property colleagues, but it's just to provide confidence and assurance that that's absolutely done in partnership. So where we are with property at the moment is working up that long-term maintenance programme in the full recognition that reactive repairs is not the most cost-effective way of dealing with ancient monuments. And you're quite right to point out these assets we hold on behalf of our community and on behalf of our residents. We are custodians of an ancient monument in the castle. So whilst we are inviting an enormous amount of visitors, the wear and tear obviously has an impact. So it is to provide some assurance we are working really well and there is a long-term maintenance project that is going to be agreed, including ensuring that the castle has the appropriate level of maintenance and funding in that budget to make sure that it survives for future generations.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. I think Councillor Oliver would like to come in, please.
Just to add to that point, in terms of nasty surprises, I think we have been left with one of those. Due to the lack of maintenance programme and the lack of investment in maintaining the castle, we've been left with a £13.5 million bill. It's very much a priority of our administration and of mine. So in terms of nasty surprises, unfortunately, that's where we currently find ourselves, Councillor Cleaver. So just adding that one in.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. It was nice to see all the hard work you've been doing and it's paying off. But how do you go about promoting visits to museums, to schools, to get children involved in visiting? Because usually if you get the child interested and involved in visiting a museum, you then get the family following. I just wondered how you go about promoting that to get schools to visit.
Yes, so we have a facilitated learning programme as well as a self-led learning programme that's delivered across all of our sites. So, and that is promoted with relationships we have established through an existing kind of school network, as well as a news bulletin that actually goes to all the schools as well. So we work with children's services colleagues to promote those. As well as that, we have an aviation partnership funded position that works with all the schools to do with promotion of the aviation heritage, so that there's already those established links that we're naturally we endeavour to build on and grow, but we have a really strong track record when we've won the Sanford Award in terms of our learning programme, so it sits there as a very high performing option and access for children to access the services.
Maybe you could add that into the report.
Okay.
Thank you both for that. Councillor Parkinson, please.
Thank you so much. Just to really pick up on Councillor Cleaver's point around the Stamford Mercury Archive Trust, really. They're a wonderful organisation. The volunteers that run it are absolutely fantastic. Anyone that's not been, do go. It's absolutely amazing, some of the work that they do. I know they're in a bit of a sticky situation at the moment in terms of potentially coming homeless in the coming years. I do think it would be in the best interest of this council to ensure that they have somewhere to keep those archives. It'd be a real shame if they were to not have anywhere to store those archives. it's a real shame in terms of where they're positioned at the moment. They're tucked away in a really quiet part of Stamford, and actually, if they were more visible, I think they make a massive difference, and they do some wonderful Christmas cards as well. So always support those if you can. So really my point here would just be that if there's something more we could do to support them, that would be wonderful, even if we work with external partners to find them a new home to keep all those records in, because they are absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. Nicole would like to come in there. Thank you.
Yeah, I strongly agree. We work, as James has mentioned, really closely with Stamford Town Council, but it's also about our role as a leadership, isn't it, in a council, in that we can't solve all of the problems, but we know somebody who can. So it's very much about, with those situations, about being able to access different funding streams for them, acting as an ambassador, but also sometimes acting as a bit of an assurance and a gatekeeper. So we will absolutely follow that one up. And I totally agree with you that local collections should be held within local communities for the local benefit.
Thank you, thank you. Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you very much. Yeah, great investment in the Lincoln Museum. I've got a few questions on that in the next item, but really good, great investment there. This may be an extension from the other point with what Councillor Cleaver said. So what are you doing want to do in the future to use our attractions in Lincoln as a gateway into promoting venues across the rest of the county? Do you think we're doing enough right now to push other attractions? And what is it we're doing right now to promote that? And also, I just wanted a little bit of an overview of the main challenges you face in delivering heritage, library and archive services, and how were these being addressed? Thank you.
James, are you coming in with that one? Yeah.
Yeah. So working with other attractions, there are various networks and various groups that we have within that we attend. So from the sort of local museum network that's within the county, but we also do some degree of mentoring programs as well, or mentoring sessions. So some of our officers will go out into local communities and support them with either establishing or information. We've held engagement sessions previously where we go around, and interestingly, the feedback you get from local museums isn't around support per se, it's around access to funding, which as a service we don't have a grant fund pot to do that, but we do support or signpost those groups to do those. So there is a network of groups there already. So hopefully that we can build on that going forwards. Issues we're receiving from Nicole. I don't know if defer to yourself on that one.
So I think what we'll be able to demonstrate, and particularly with Charlotte's presentation on the museum development, is that we're certainly not constrained by our imagination in culture and our ambition, but we are constrained sometimes by the realities and the practicalities. So not wishing to steal Charlotte's thunder, but when you see what we've achieved with a relatively sizable investment, but in comparison to how much the nationals receive, it's a drop in the ocean. I am hoping that you will be astounded just by how far we've made it go. So if we could do that for all of our sites, and then you know, showcase Lincolnshire on a much greater stage, because this attacks all of the investors, all of the nationals, all of the big loaners. So if we start getting more and more of those exhibitions, and we get a name for ourselves in that way, the collective always benefits then the whole, doesn't it? So we are by far leading, I feel, in this arena. But that's not to say that we're not supported very closely by our districts, really closely by the individuals who have an approach of philanthropy, and also our partners within the other organisations, that's landlords, that's hotel owners, etc. So we work really, really closely as a collective, because what benefits one tends to benefit all.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Grantham, please.
No, thank you very much. It's not so much the questions, but it's actually to say that I'm really impressed with what all the officers and our executives actually done. You know, there's a staffing review which has saved in excess of £500,000 a year with a combination of savings and increased income generated, a net saving of £1.5 million a year. I think that's absolutely phenomenal. So I just want to thank every single one of you for doing that, and hopefully some of that money can go on to the burden, as Councillor Arthur says, of £30 million that we've established. So thank you very much for producing excellent work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grantham. Councillor Parkinson, please.
Thank you so much. Just one more from me. Obviously, there's been a lot recently made of the government's introduction or the idea of this new tourism tax, which potentially presents us with an opportunity to say no to this and obviously let everybody know that Lincolnshire is open to tourism without that additional tax. So there is an opportunity here for us to, I suppose, make a big play on that. So once the decision has been made, hopefully that we're not introducing the tourism tax, is that something that we as administration will then begin to push and advertise in that respect?
So I think, Councillor Parkinson, as you've rightly said, that would be for the administration as opposed for an officer to respond to.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions, please? Thank you for all those really good questions, and thank you for the lovely answers as well. Thank you. I propose that the committee has reviewed the report and has been assured on the activity and impact delivered by the Culture Service. Can you please raise your hand if you agree? I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. That is agreed. So item 6, Lincoln Museum Redevelopment Project Update. This item is on pages 21 to 26 of the agenda pack and provides an update on the Lincoln Museum Refresh project. The actions required by the committee are to review this report and seek assurance on the progress made to date following the approval of the scheme's appraisal in March 2025. The report will be presented by Charlotte Lane, Culture Service Manager. We also have Nicole Hilton, Assistant Director of Communities, and Jane Sharple, Business Transformation Manager, Culture, in attendance to help answer any questions. Over to you then, Charlotte, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just wait for the presentation. Thank you, Jess. So we wanted to bring this presentation to the committee today, largely as an update. Obviously, it's a very bold transformation that was previously approved in 2019, which I'll go to in a little bit more detail in the next slide. But essentially, the purpose was very much to strengthen our heritage portfolio and Lincoln Museum as a key player within the Heritage Service. Our objective to bring more visitors to Lincolnshire through an enhanced cultural offer. Next slide, Jess, thank you. So a little bit of a background on the journey so far. In 2019, we produced the Heritage Service Detailed Business Case. This would position the service towards a more commercial approach. The business case included investment into Lincoln Museum. As James had previously alluded to, there was no investment prior to when it first reopened in 2005. So we've made that initial investment last incredibly well. It was time that we obviously created that investment to improve the offer further. This would see Lincoln Museum be developed as a super site model, which we alluded to in the previous presentation. The super site model is very much based on a multifaceted approach. We're looking to bring that visitor experience through layers of offer throughout the cultural services, bringing more visitors to the museum and also the surrounding sites that we have within our portfolio as well. Lincoln Castle, which operates on the same model, which generates around 1.2 million in admissions each year. The business case was subsequently approved, along with that investment into Lincoln Museum. So obviously the investment itself represents a fantastic opportunity to re-energise the archaeology gallery. We really wanted to refresh key areas of the public engagement space and ultimately to showcase the stories of Lincolnshire. We have such a rich, vast history in this county. And we've been doing 20 years of collecting ever since we first opened, many of which of those items we haven't not previously shown to the public. We have a wealth of heritage that we want to showcase. So this holistic review of both previously seen and unseen objects will really bring culture services to the table, and we'll be able to reimagine the visitor experience within that gallery and showcase those hidden gems that we've been dying to show everybody for years. So once we had approval, we got to work. Working with our colleagues in corporate property, we needed to establish the best route for that procurement. It isn't a standard build. We needed to make sure that we sought specialist expertise to ensure that we got the most out of our investment. So we went through what was called the dynamic purchasing framework, and that enabled a broader selection of the specialist market to tender for what would be a hugely ambitious redevelopment. Through a competitive tender, we received 9 bids. We carried 4 across into a second stage, so there was a rigorous process, after which we appointed the Creative Core Group Limited to deliver the project based on their previous experience and their ambitious design and their willingness to work collaboratively with us on that project. We attended the previous scrutiny in February with the progress to date, and that followed by approval to proceed with those main works, which I'll be able to update you on a little bit more as we run through this report. Thank you. Next slide, Jess. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we've obviously working with specialist contractors. We want to ensure that we stay true to our objectives. We need to remain agile, future-focused and audience-driven. Ultimately, we need to ensure that there are more reasons for people to visit more often. The second you enter the archaeology gallery, you'll be met with a completely new journey. There'll be new objects never seen, as I've previously alluded to, but there's also going to be an added element of flexibility. That agile, dynamic approach to the gallery will ensure that, you know, when you go one time, that's fine, but we need to bring you back, and you need to be able to see more and get more value out of that experience, and that's exactly what we've built into this new design. From a combination of brand new digital immersive experiences through to those more traditional tactile interactives, and obviously the visitor journey throughout the gallery, there really is going to be something for everybody, and we've been very conscious in making sure that will be the case. Next slide, Jess, thank you. So alongside the archaeology gallery, we've also got the exciting existing public engagement area, which is at the front of the museum for those that have been previously. That's going to be redesigned and transformed into a multi-purpose exhibition space that will complement the main gallery, but will also increase those opportunities for public engagement. It will also provide us with opportunities for events, hire, exhibitions, and obviously with that higher element, generating additional income for LCC as a result. Adding to our reputable hire offer, which the previous presentation obviously went into a little bit more detail around that. Next slide, Jess, thank you. So going back to our project objectives then, so we didn't want to simply redecorate and move a few displays around. It really was an opportunity that we had to grab with both hands to reset, to engage the public. We went out very early on with a public engagement exercise, and the idea from that was that we would gain from the public what they wanted out of their museum. This is their history, it is their museum, and it was absolutely vital that we got their input into what is going to be a transformational redevelopment for the museum. We want to create more reasons for people to visit more often. We need to adapt to audience needs and interests, and I think it's safe to say that obviously over 20 years much has changed, and we need to be adaptive to that. The flexible design allows us to rotate displays and objects more frequently, alluding to that more people, more often, more reasons to engage, giving people something new, you know, when they arrive at the museum. And ultimately, it's connecting people with place. You know, as I said, this is their museum, this is their heritage and history, and it's really important that we make those connections. It's placemaking. It's so important. And so throughout the gallery, through a thematic approach, we feel we've really captured that. And when it does reopen, obviously visitors will be enjoying the new museum. They'll be able to make those place-based connections and those human connections that are so important for us to resonate with those of the past. As well as the main museum gallery, we've enhanced the retail and cafe offer. It's obviously a very holistic project, so whilst the main gallery is obviously the largest part of the redevelopment, we have done a holistic review and refresh of the entire offer. It's a destination. We want to ensure that people enjoy their day, they spend as much time as they want, not just in the gallery, but through the retail offer that has been upgraded, the cafe, which is a destination cafe in itself. It's had significant investment in the AV, in the auditorium, and it's just going to provide a really full refresh of that space. So you really feel that that visual impact is there from the moment you enter that museum, demonstrating that value for money and that transformational change that we promised we would deliver. Next slide, Jess, thank you. So project governance, obviously all projects require that governance to ensure transparency and to ensure that we remain on target. We do have the Lincoln Museum Development Delivery Board. We actually had our last one yesterday. They are monthly meetings and they are facilitated by ourselves in Culture Services with representatives from property, finance, communications team. And it just ensures that everybody is fully up to date. We discuss the project progress, budget, risk. It's very important that we obviously revisit those objectives, make sure we're staying true to what we set out to achieve, and ultimately ensuring that we remain on target for the completion. Regular monthly meetings are also in the diaries and include our assistant director, our executive director, and there are also monthly meetings with the executive councillor as well. That's to ensure that there's transparency throughout, any questions can be raised and updates are given frequently. Next slide, Jess, thank you. So progress to date. So we have decanted the entire gallery of its collections. That took quite some time. We have thousands of objects on display. Each object has been carefully packaged and transported, ready for temporary storage, and crucial conservation works have already begun. They will continue throughout the first half of 2026, but this vital work really does enable their safe installation and their display for years to come. It's really important that we get this right so that we can display those objects for future generations to enjoy, as we have done for the last 20 years. So work has already been underway in the main gallery with the flooring. We, rather than replace what was a 20-year-old, in some places quite damaged floor, we have used a very sustainable approach, and we've been able to source the original tiles. So where we've been able to, we've just replaced what needed to be replaced. And then with that saving, we were able to fully varnish and sand and varnish the entire floor. So at the fraction of a cost, we were able to completely renovate that floor, and it looks absolutely fantastic. It looks brand new, obviously now being protected as we go through to the main works. But again, just one of those elements of sustainability. We've been very keen throughout that whilst, as Nicole mentioned, it was a sizable investment, we want to make sure that that goes as far as possible. So the main update that I can share today is that the construction works have begun. We started on Monday as planned within the programme, and that will now see a hive of activity on site through to the spring of 2026. From flooring to lighting, from immersive activity to display cases, it really is the biggest, most ambitious redevelopment since we reopened, and we're very excited. Next slide, please, Jess. Thank you. So as well as obviously the interactive exhibits and the main works construction element, there was a lot of design that's gone into this. Mostly in museum, it's design. It's all about the visitor experience, the interpretation, the curatorial aspects. So we've spent a long time making sure that we got that right. We listened to the views of the public, and we feel that working in collaboration with the contractor, we have established a really modern, flexible design suited to capture the imagination and engagement of all our visitors, whilst retaining that heritage, traditional sense that obviously people have grown to love and expect from their museum. The colour palettes, as you see there, are the colour palettes that we have been going through, and each one of those has been carefully curated in line with the thematic approach that you'll see once the gallery reopens. Again, we wanted to enhance that core offer through the refreshing of those displays and increase that sustainability. So everything is linked, and it's really important that every detail was scrutinised, and every decision was made with that purpose in mind. Next slide, Jess, thank you. So to not give too much away, obviously I have mentioned there are some interactive design elements. We have a very ambitious particular part of the design which we are incredibly excited to share with you all once we reopen. It is immersive, it is powerful, and it will take you on a genuine historical journey of Lincolnshire. And we're still in the throes of the design at the moment. As you can see here, this is some of the sketch work that we've been working through. It's really important that we take the time to get that historical accuracy, as well as that entertainment, exciting factor. You know, we are a genuine museum with real history, and we wanted to honour that in the best way. Thank you, Jess. Next slide. So as I alluded to, the main museum gallery is obviously the largest part of the redevelopment, but alongside that we have been very busy. We've been investing in the key areas of our museum whilst we've been working on the design of this transformation. So the external courtyard, there are new gates and railings. That's to provide a secure outdoor space so that we can utilise that space further. Visitors can enjoy that space safely and securely. And again, we can use that as a bit of an overspill from the cafe area for us to generate additional higher income, particularly in the summer months. It's going to be a really fantastic space to work with. Muse Cafe, we saw increased commercial activity prior to our closure, and as obviously with regards to the museum development. But again, through a sustainable approach, we didn't simply replace things. We recovered seats, we reupholstered the chairs, we changed the tabletops, we reinvested in our kitchen and our menu. And again, I think it's just proven tenfold what a relatively small amount of that investment within the cafe has really gone beyond our expectations. And we've had so many people comment on how refreshing the space looks and how great it is and how much they've enjoyed spending time there. So that's been really positive. An update we can also share today is the retail refresh is now complete. Using a local supplier, we engaged with a design consultant and a local construction company, and they have provided an absolutely fantastic retail space for our visitors. Really important we got this one right in particular. For those of you that have been to the museum, you have to walk through the retail offer to get through to the museum. So it's really important that we use that space effectively, and that resource and that investment was used as best as we could. And as we alluded to earlier, the auditorium has had a full upgrade, reupholster of seats, new flooring, ready and waiting for the new hire brochure. Once we reopen, we really want to put Lincoln Museum on the map as a reputable hire space, not just for Lincolnshire County Council, but for wider external organisations as well. Thank you, Jess. Next slide. So the upcoming key milestones, well, as I mentioned, main works are started and expected to be complete in the spring. Obviously, we are only on day 5. Everything is going to plan so far. And then once the site is handed back to us, that is where our crucial activity really begins. We need to ensure that the museum is fully installed of its collections, that all of those collections have been preserved and conserved to enable their safe installation. We were successful in gaining additional funding through a sustainability fund to procure and install LED and Bluetooth lighting across all the public engagement areas of the museum. So we'll be doing that alongside this development. That will see a much more flexible approach to lighting within the main gallery, which is incredibly important when you're changing displays, bringing loan items in from other lenders. You really want to use that lighting effectively to showcase that object. This will allow us to do that, to change the lightings, to change the grading of the lighting and the positioning much easier. It also allows us to replace it more frequently, and ultimately will save us money in terms of the energy savings that will come from it. So to conclude, we are making excellent progress. As I say, we started on Monday. We are going to time. We have a clear focus on enriching that visitor experience, boosting footfall into Lincolnshire, and embedding sustainability into every aspect of what it is that we are trying to achieve. We continue to deliver this within the approved budget, on the schedule, and each phase of work undergoes a rigorous quality review. And we have been ensured to date that everything that has been produced has reflected the high quality standards that we, not only as Lincolnshire County Council, expect, but that our visitors and our community should also expect. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that really wonderful report. I'm excited for it to be opened. Councillor Grantham and I were privileged a little while ago to go and have a a look around. It was very exciting, so it certainly will bring me back anyway. Thank you. So, questions. Councillor Robinson, I believe.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the report. One of the key words used there was immersive. That will certainly bring visitors back again and again, because if you know, that's the proper 21st century sort of museum, is that immersive experience. So that's brilliant to see that that's what sort of the focus is for this. Just a few questions about the financial return from the redesign of the public engagement area into a multi-purpose exhibition space. What is the projected financial return for that? And what are the projected figures for the increase in annual visits and the shop cafe spend and overall tourism impact? What do you think that is, that goal? Thank you.
So the modelling that we've done has been based on a percentage increase. It's hard to predict the additional spend that it will bring in. What we've done is just calculated it on additional visitors that we expect to see. Putting an actual cost to it or an actual value to it, I think it's a little bit too early, and those figures will come kind of quite soon. Once we get further into the project, I think then we'll have a much better understanding as to what space will be at what market price, because obviously there will be a tipping point. So I think that's something we can bring back.
Brilliant, I'd like to see that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. When I was younger, and I can remember this, that when I was in school, we used to go to the museum. What are the plans for the children of Lincoln and Lincolnshire to attend the museum? Is there going to be a plan where schools going to be invited to go?
Thank you for your question. Absolutely. So James mentioned our learning offer earlier. That very much took place at Lincoln Museum. Obviously, we have been closed due to the redevelopment. Currently, that learning offer is being facilitated at the castle. And we've been met with huge positivity on that. We've been able to maintain that offer despite the museum closure. But absolutely, our plans as part of the reopening, not just in terms of exhibition visitors, but for that learning offer, it's really important that we engage those schools early, getting them back into that museum and using that space as they did previously. It was much loved, and we know that schools are very keen to get back in. Thank you.
So I'll tell the children of my 6 schools in my division they're welcome to come up straight away. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Charlotte, for a fantastic presentation. I really did enjoy that. I love museums and heritage, as some people may know. So I'm quite excited about this, to be fair. I think all the officers, should really be, it's absolutely amazing. I am so lost for words, to be honest. So well done, all the officers. And it's great to see so many forward-thinking officers, to be honest, and with a drive and passion. Regarding the schools as well, will you be sort of like be including academy schools to come as well? And also, the risk, you say you're opening about the 2026, the end of, to be fully finished. Could you see anything that may stop that happening? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. So just with regards to the schools first, we do currently offer the learning offer for academies as well. It's a very broad learning offer. It isn't just primary schools, it's secondary schools, academies, local authority, colleges, independent groups. So it's a very, very broad offer, and that will only extend and exceed as we reopen next year. In terms of reopening, obviously we have said the second half of 2026. We are only 5 days into that construction. So I think for us, it's really important that when we go out with a date, it's the date. And so for us, it's second half of 2026. Once we are a little bit further in that development space, we'll be able to confirm more concretely what that will look like. But certainly, it's what we're working on it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Grantham, please.
No, thank you again. You've actually blown my mind again to you, Nicole, and yourself, Shara, again. Some of the things like the early public consultation and getting residents' feedback that you've put into this museum, I think is really critical, and for the attraction on that side, as well as even just like the little things like the saving cost on the flooring, for instance, and even the lighting and saving on energy. I think there you go, when you put all those together, it's value for money on that sense. So, you know, really big well done on that. And my question is, how will the new design and digital enhancement improve accessibility and inclusivity?
Thank you for your question. So with the design, obviously we've spent a lot of time with the museum experts. We've obviously, with the community engagement that we did, it was really important that we didn't go back to a purely sort of academic sense in terms of when you go through those museums. We want people to resonate with the collections and stories that we display. So we'll be going through a multi-layered approach. So we have the digital, we have the tactile, we've got the visual storyboarding, we've got the narrative that sits with that. We've got the our tour guides, our guides that are on site, our staff team. You know, they are absolutely at the heart of what we do, and it'll be really important that as part of that redevelopment and the reopening, that our staff have all of that information and all of the different angles that we can interpret that and share that with everybody. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any more questions, please? Okay, thank you. So that concludes the questions, and thank you very much for those comments. I suggest and propose that the committee has reviewed this report and has been assured on the progress made to date following the approval of the scheme's appraisal in March 2025, and we request that a visit to Lincoln Museum be arranged for committee members once refresh has been completed, please. We're eager to get there. Okay, can we please have a raise of your hands, please, if those agree? Thank you. Okay, I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, item 7. Service level performance reporting against the performance framework 25-26 as at Q2. This item is on pages 27 to 42 of the agenda pack and provides a summary of the service level performance against the performance framework 25-26 for the children's services and the culture service as at Q2. Actions required by the committee are to review and comment on the children's and culture service level performance 25-26 as at Q2. The report will be presented by Joe Kavanagh, Assistant Director, Early Help for Children's Services Performance Measures on pages 27 to 35, and by Nicole Hilton, Assistant Director, Communities for the Culture Service Performance Measures on pages 36 to 39. Over to you, Joe and Nicola. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the first time that performance has come to this committee, so I intend to just go very briefly through each of the performance indicators and then take any questions. So you'll see that there are 6 measures that have exceeded, 2 achieved, and 5 that didn't meet target for this Q2. Where available, there is benchmarking data included in the report so that you can see, even when we've not achieved our target, that we are performing well against national, regional and statistical neighbours. So if I start with children, the time taken in relation to moving a child from care to an adoptive family. So this is really strong performance. You can see from the graph that's included, there have been fluctuations in this performance target, and they're usually for factors that are outside of our control. They relate to the smaller number of adopters being available, which is a national challenge, and also to issues of congestion within the court process, which can sometimes lead to delay. Secondly, it's really pleasing to note that we are performing really strongly against matching a child with an adoptive family. The team put a lot of effort into this target, and that's why we perform so well in this area. In terms of measures that didn't meet the target, the first there is children in care. So you can see that our rate per 10,000 children is at 56.1, where the target is 51.9. You can see from the benchmarking data that we still perform really strongly compared with all of our comparators, and that's really around our efforts to intervene early with children and families to ensure that we do everything we can to support those children in their home environments and when that's not available within their family networks. Again, within terms of children subject to a child protection plan, you can see that this is in line with a national position in terms of increases of numbers of children on a child protection plan. We started at a really low base, but we still perform really strongly with our comparators, and we work really hard with these children. These are our most vulnerable children that are assessed as being at significant risk of harm. And within this cohort, there will be children where parents cannot make the difference that is needed in order to reduce that risk, and they will potentially become children in care. Others will do really well, supported by our strong staff and our multi-agency partners, and then they will be stepped down to make sure that those outcomes are sustainable. In terms of the next education-related targets, I don't know, Martin, if you wanted to comment on those two.
Thank you, Jo. So on the next two, it's around the FSM, free school meal gap between non-FSM pupils at Key Stage 2, and that's below target as outlined in the report. And the second one that's below target is around permanent exclusions within Lincolnshire for the academic year 24-25. And I kind of just highlight on both of those, there's that nuance around how we engage and what's our statutory duty of supporting schools and settings in these areas. So most of our secondary schools are academies, so we don't have a statutory duty to improve. However, working with partners as a coherent offer across all of our schools in Lincolnshire, we do have a comprehensive offer of MPQH qualifications, but also targeted programmes of support for all of our schools to engage and improve their performance in some of these areas. Thanks, Jo.
Thank you, Martin. So then just moving on in terms of the 16 and 17-year-old children in care that are participating in learning. As you can imagine, 16 and 17-year-olds, that is a really tricky time for all children, regardless of their family circumstances. And within this cohort, you can see really detailed of those in the target of 193 young people. There were 173 that were participating in learning at that period in Q2. For some children and young people, they will have recently entered care. For some, they experience placement instability at that age because for lots of teenagers, it's a time of real challenge for them. So you can see that there are a number of young people that moved placement, which disrupted their education and training. The virtual school, as you can see in the detailed commentary, know every one of those individual children really well and work really tenaciously to ensure that if their education and training is disruptive, there is actions that are taken in order to ensure that that doesn't remain the case. And we'll see probably a change in who's in that cohort of being out of education, training and learning when we get into Q3. There's quite a lot of fluctuation within that cohort. And then finally, care leavers in suitable accommodation. You can see that we are just below the target. Again, this is a cohort of children, young people and young adults. The team work really tenaciously to ensure that they are in suitable accommodation. There will be a small number in this cohort who are in custody, and that's automatically deemed as unsuitable. There are others who, despite our best efforts, don't want to engage with us, and whilst we may consider their accommodation to be unsuitable, it is what they are choosing at the time. That doesn't mean to say that we won't continue to ensure that that changes. Okay? Okay, and I'll hand over to Nicole to do the culture ones.
Thank you, Jo. So PI 35, which is contact with the Heritage Service through person, phone or email. We're pleased to report that this is a growth for community interactions with culture services of over 33% compared to last year's figures. This reflects the increasingly varied summer programme including the highly anticipated return of the medieval joust, the outdoor theatre and exhibitions such as the Then and Now exhibition that we held at the Museum of Lincolnshire Life. So that is across all of our sites. PI 35 is library visits. So the library app continues to be incredibly popular and it provides a means for users to access the local library, reflecting the way in which communities are choosing to engage with the library service via digital means. That was certainly accelerated during COVID and hasn't dropped off in any way. It actually continues to grow and climb. PI 38, which is the community use of libraries. So we recognise that libraries continue to be a vital community asset across Lincolnshire. And this success is due to the wide variety of events and groups offered across libraries, libraries no longer just being about book loans. Lincoln and Louth libraries again welcome the holiday activities and the food programme, which is the provider of imagination gaming, and this was a children's services initiative, so a nice demonstration of our partnership working. Additionally, we've hosted a variety of community groups for pop-up engagement stands, which include Specsavers Community Audiology Services, I think that's hearing aids, Health Watch, and a new job club session that's been delivered by the Shaw Trust. PI 129, and that's the overall enjoyment for our services, which in many ways is one of our best indicators. So simply having visitors is one thing, but we want visitors to have a fantastic time and come back and recommend us to their families and friends. You will note on that one, the target is 97% and we've scored 100%. So Culture Services are really pleased to report that visitors who completed our visitor surveys rated that experience as good or very good between July and September. We also capture visitor experience across comparable external feedback platforms, things like TripAdvisor and Google, and on those we average between 4.7 and 5 stars. A fantastic score that remains steady alongside a growing number of online reviews. As Councillor Oliver mentioned in her opening address, Lincoln Castle has also been awarded the Visit England Gold Accolade. This is one of the highest recognitions for visitor experience at a national level, so we're incredibly proud of the team there and all of the hard work that they've been doing. PI 36, that's the visits to the core library and our rural library services. The library continues to provide a comprehensive and efficient service to its users, remaining agile and responsive to the changing needs of our community. With a total of 3,540 children participating in the Summer Reading Challenge across the core and mobile libraries and 747 across the 20 community hubs. Physical issues across the quarter continue to represent on average 65% of all issues, demonstrating how visitors are continuing to make the most of their local libraries. Our increasingly diverse digital officer continues to excel with the community accessing their library service via the app or website. One thing that I would like to just reassure the committee is that from the library KPIs, we do knock it out the park, I think is the official language, of our performance figures. So one of the questions that's been arising over the last 12 months is, do we not need to put up our performance figures? And yes, indeed, that is something that we will be doing alongside the signing of the new library contract in April of next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So do we have any questions, please? Councillor Rowe first, and then we go to Councillor Cleaver. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just several comments about these. P25, we have a target of 520 and an actual of 481. When you look at the target, it looks like the target's chasing the achievement. The achievement now is improving. And I'm just wondering if it's time that we actually look at that target and set a target of probably somewhere around 500 rather than 520. P26, we are very good compared with the East Midlands, England and statistics called Neighbours, with a target of 170, which again possibly looks a little bit high, and I'm wondering if we can maybe look at that around the 155 mark rather than the 170. And then P24, again, very good comparatively, but not achieving target. Now, in this case, that's making what is actually an excellent result look poor, because it looks like we haven't achieved target. And I think in this case that because we are doing so well comparatively, maybe the target should be higher, so as the whole overall thing looks good. And again, probably a target of something like about 420 might sort of make sense. One for Martin, P67. Does the number of exclusions impact on a school, and is the harm on their reputation not sufficient? And then just one other comment before I shut up. Library targets, I hear you say they're going to be addressed. They're not challenging, they're not relevant, other than, of course, the overall enjoyment. And when you're running at 95, 97%, there's not a lot you can say about that other than well done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rowe. All of the targets are going to be reviewed with the new executive, and we'll be setting new targets. I hear what you're saying when we're performing above regional, national and statistical neighbours but not meeting the target we set for ourselves. We might need to look at that. I think it's fair to say we're always really ambitious about these things, and I'm keen to see that ambition continue, and we will review them, and we'll always look to outperform those other areas. But I do hear what you're saying. I think the other thing I would just add is on some of them, although they're classed as targets, let's not forget we wouldn't want to not bring children into care because it would take us over our target, or not put children on a child protection plan. So some of those measures in children's services are about having a general aim, a general prediction, because we know we need to keep an eye on that, but we wouldn't as a service make practice-based decisions on this target. We'd look at strategic decisions about, are we bringing too many children into care? Are there other strategies that we can use? And we're not needing to evaluate any of that at this point, but take your point, and we will absolutely be reviewing the targets with the new administration. Thanks.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Rowe, for your question. In terms of the impact on high levels of exclusions on schools and communities, I suppose looking just at the data, it's worthwhile just stressing yet again that the high levels of permanent exclusions are from a very small number of schools in Lincolnshire. So over 300 schools have not permanently excluded any children last year. And for the academic year 24-25, we're really talking about 16 schools that disproportionately account for them. So what is the impact of that? There's a significant impact on the school themselves. I don't think any school that excludes or is highly excluding would say they're doing it because they have an ambition or a desire to do it. They feel like they need to do it. There are impacts to families and children, because then that becomes a duty of finding alternative provision by the 6th day after the exclusion, which has a cost and an impact on the local authority and the high needs block in terms of funding that capacity when it's really hard to predict and second guess. I think there is a community impact. Schools talk to each other, they challenge each other, they feel the positive benefits of pupil movement and also the challenges of reintegrating high levels of children in a local community. What I would say as well is that we're entering a really interesting time, because all of that happened under an old Ofsted framework for school inspection. The new framework starts on the 1st of November, and there's a distinct line within that framework that will be commenting on level of inclusion and belonging and effectiveness, and it will be commented on around, is a school taking effective action to keep hold of children, maintain educational standards, and provide them the right kind of support, whether they've got SEND or additional needs. That will become more of a factor over this next period, and is likely, I would suggest, to drive behaviour within the system with a view of reducing those numbers of PX.
Thank you very much. Just a question myself there on that. At what stage do you get informed that there's a child coming up for exclusion? I mean, do you get brought in there quite early so you can look at this situation with the school?
Thank you, Chair. So the legal duty is to notify the local authority when a permanent exclusion has taken place. So we get informed after the event is the duty. Luckily, because of relationships in Lincolnshire and our work with schools and data quality, we can monitor suspension numbers. So that's short-term exit of school, 3-4 days. We monitor that in partnership with our schools, and we look for where there's 3 suspensions. We make sure that we know the name of the young person, which school, and we engage with that school to have a conversation around, is there anything that can be done support-wise? Are you using all of the services? That's used relatively well for the majority of schools. In some schools, though, we have experienced finding out about 3 or 4 exclusions 2 or 3 days into that permanent exclusion, which then only allows us 2.5 or 3 days to secure educational provision. So it's a challenge, but overall our relationships within Lincolnshire with our schools do mean we know what's happening, we can predict, and I think it's fair to say our school leaders would say that we do challenge. So if we begin to see an uptick and we're worried about that and it's a multi-academy trust, I will have a conversation with the chief executive of that trust to raise that worry and concern and seek their support in managing that situation.
Thank you. I do worry about our young children, though, that they're being excluded. You know. Thank you. Can I just ask also, how much communication do you do with these young people? I mean, you're communicating with the schools themselves. Is the communication going on with them to find out what's going on?
Yeah, thank you. So it's a mixed complex cohort. So some of our young people may have the SEND team involved. So the SEND caseworker may well be interacting and engaging with the family, with the school and the young person. We also have the pupil reintegration team who are supporting children in a number of different ways. It could be returning back to mainstream school, finding alternative provision or a combination of all of the above. And they work directly with families and children to seek their views on what they feel is the right next step. For some young people, that means a very swift return back to mainstream education and being able to continue their progress and their ambitions around qualifications. For some, it's a different SEND pathway, which brings a different kind of journey and challenge alongside that. And for some, it's other alternative means of supporting them. So we do work with children and young people. We also try and make sure that we record and seek information from parents around how they felt, particularly around following processes and procedures, particularly in the area of elective home education, where we see some parents feel that that's their only choice. And within that, you often find it's around a general dissatisfaction with school and policies and procedures within schools. So we try and capture the information of families and children and navigate the system as best we can in what is a challenged landscape currently.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work you do as well. Councillor Cleaver, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was quite shocked looking at the section on page 32 of the agenda pack on PI 42, the achievement gap. The achievement gap between pupils eligible for free school meals and their non-FSM eligible peers at Key Stage 4. I had to do a little bit of research here because I didn't understand exactly on face value what the gap was measuring. And I would make the comment straight away, when you say a target of 29.4% and an actual of 31.7%, that doesn't look that bad because 31% out of 100 looks not too awful. But when you see actually how the gap is measured, it's actually quite shocking because what you're saying is that only just over 50% of non-FSM students are actually achieving target, achieving Key Stage 4, achieving at Key Stage 4, which isn't exactly good in itself, it's only 50%. And then only 20% of free school meal children are achieving at Key Stage 4. I find that quite shocking, and I actually find it quite disheartening, I think isn't even the word, doesn't even begin to go there, that you're normalising that gap by setting a target as high as 29.4%. I'm really shocked by that. And I'm therefore disappointed that in the narrative that follows, there isn't a little bit more about this is a real problem, we need to research this, we need to find out what's going on, we need to find out or report on what's happening in other authorities. Clearly, there's a problem nationally. Nationally, it's gone up from 25% to 29% over the last 4 years. I mean, 25% is pretty high, but 31.7 seems to me really unacceptable. And you know, you're talking about a lot of children's life chances here. So I think this is something that really needs to be taken very, very seriously. We clearly don't want this to be going up any higher, and I just wonder what we can do as a county. Now, I know we're not, of course, responsible for standards in academy schools. I absolutely get that. It's not our job to do that. But we do have a responsibility to our communities. And I would hope that we could find some money somewhere and some resources to throwing some effort into researching this and knowing what's happening and what measures can be taken to ameliorate the situation. And just finally, a point of detail, the figures quoted at the top of the section on 32 have different years on them from the labelling of the graph on the top of page 33. One says 23-24 for the 31.7% in the graph, and the narrative at the top says that's for 24.5. So if you could, somebody could just clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions. Okay, so in terms of data, kind of address the data sequencing and presentation, it does get really confusing when we talk about Key Stage 4 data, because you have first initial data release, second data release, then validated data. The problem with that is it takes about 9 months to get to the validated part. So we're still in kind of working out data for July 2025 at the moment. And then comparative data is not always shared. So I apologise for that, but that's kind of led by a national approach in terms of data releases. Yeah, I think in terms of standards, we would all want to see that gap narrowing. It is a national issue. In locally, schools with children with free school meal, or a certain group of them, do attract a significant level of funding through pupil premium to try and narrow that gap, with the concept being that school leaders and multi-academy trusts and maintained schools are given that resource to really tailor the support to those children and young people. Whether that measurement of what's being used to measure it indicates that outcome and that positive progress is a challenging one to discern from. But in terms of funding to address that, as I mentioned, through our educational single plan with the Teaching School Hub, with our multi-academy trust, we talk about these topics and look for good practice to be able to share at leadership briefings and drive forward improvements. That doesn't really ask for resource, that's more as focusing and sharing that priority. To some degree, I think it's also a statistical challenge when we talk about free school meal children. That cohort has changed over the last 5-6 years. The number within the cohort has significantly increased because of pandemic thresholds, etc., for being able to claim, which I think overall means that there's 25,000 children within that cohort, whereas previously it was something like 17,500. So that kind of twists and distorts the data. In terms of priorities for narrowing the gap, the DFE are aware, and they hold that ability to be able to fund research into this. So I'm sure you would have heard around the Education Endowment Foundation. They get significant funding around looking at priorities for the government and sharing best practice papers, which then different partners within the system pick up and deliver. In fact, we talked 2 weeks ago at the Education Partnership around have we got enough going on around FSM and narrowing that gap, and that's going to be a focus for us for the next 12 months as well. So the education landscape really is a jigsaw puzzle really of different support offers, and I go back to my earlier point, for the County Council it's about harnessing all of those offers bringing them all to the fore, presenting one coherent offer in every community so that schools know what they can engage in that's right for them and personalised to them as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you both. Councillor Brooks, please.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned that there was about 16 schools that are doing these most of the exclusions. Is there a specific area for those schools, or are they just all around Lincolnshire? Also, out of the 5 measures that didn't meet the target, are we going to focus on all of the 5 to try and get them back into target? Are we going to focus on top 2, which are the most urgent ones? And also, is there an increase in homeschooling? Thank you.
I'll start and then Martin can correct me if I'm wrong. Those schools are all over the county, so they tend to be in areas of deprivation, tend to be in areas where we see higher levels of family poverty, is where we see higher levels of exclusions, but they are spread beautifully across the county, and as is our provision to support children with who've been excluded. So our alternative provision is spread across the county as well, to try and minimise the home to school transport impact. In terms of which targets are we going to start with, I guess this is the first time you've had this here. And so the areas where we are overperforming national, statistical neighbours and regional, and in order to address the target, we would have to make a decision to do something we wouldn't do. We will address the target, not the what's happening, and I think it links to Councillor Rowe's comment and links to the work we're going to do with the executive around that, because we set targets, then things change and the context changes and the target then is reviewed and will respond to that. So I think that's really important. And also it's about, some of these targets are here because, as Councillor Cleaver says, these are really important, but not always do we have the levers to make a huge significant difference. And so it's about us being honest with you. We get this is really important to you. But actually, even with significant resource, I can't force an academy to change their curriculum on our advice. That ship has sailed in terms of provision. So we've set out what we're planning to do. And I mean, you'll see, for example, on the Key Stage 4 one, we have funded projects in Gainsborough and Skegness to target some of these results. But we also, underneath this, have a level of data which officers look at on a weekly basis. And then what we're trying to do is, before things get out of target, we intervene. And then the corporate leadership team looks at them on a monthly basis. So just to assure you, we're very evidence informed. We track that data really carefully. We respond to that data as quickly as we can. And that's why it's important that our targets do show where we're not meeting our ambition, rather than just where we're not outperforming other people, because if we're not meeting our own ambition, we need to respond to that. So we will definitely reflect on these targets as we do the targets underneath. We will definitely be looking at strategically what we can do, but it's just keep reminding committee, because it's the first time, some of these targets we are above most authorities in the country, but below our own target, and that is something that we need to have a look at. Did I get all of you? Yeah, so I think you said, is homeschooling increasing? Yes, it is. Nationally and in Lincolnshire, we're seeing a significant rise in parents choosing to home educate. And I think it's fair to say, Martin's talked briefly about those parents who we talk to who say they feel they had no choice. There are some parents who absolutely have made a positive choice to home educate. It is a philosophical choice for them. It's well prepared. It's well planned. There are others who feel like they didn't have a choice, and that's what we want to try and address, really, so that we ensure that where parents want to keep their children in school, they're able to do so.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a few questions about the permanent exclusions. I think they've been answered by the committee already, really. So, yeah, just great to see the due diligence to see if there's any alternatives to the school, and that's what we're doing. So that's great to hear. Just regarding the libraries and heritage performance, with 100% of visitors rating their experience as good or very good, an average external rating of 4.7 out of 5. What are the proposed changes in the review of how the service collates on-site visitor experience data to encourage more people to complete the surveys, just to make sure that we are finding that feedback that maybe, you know, where we can improve if we're not getting that data. So just wanted to make sure that we collect that data. If we've got somebody that's not completely happy, we're collecting all that data. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I think statistically it's hard, I think mathematically impossible to get above 100%. The standard, the industry standard that we collect from TripAdvisor and Google is the normal industry standard. Obviously, we also include our own surveys. We also include feedback actually on site to our staff. So that's maybe something we can consider about feeding in. You're absolutely right about those customers who are dissatisfied, and how do we collect that? Because most of them are either so cross that they go on the keyboard and tell us about it, or actually they just don't, and therefore they don't come back. So I think that is a really important thing that we look at and work upon, and I will task the team with giving that some consideration. But thank you for your comments.
Yeah, it's just providing, you know, to make sure that we are collecting that and showing to our customers, if you are, that we are trying to improve. If that's not been shown to them, that they can show feedback and that we are trying to improve. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Grantham, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, hi, Heather. When it comes to the national curriculum that we can't change in academies, is this data also reflected in that? Because if it is, I would say it's pretty hard to judge LCC if we don't have it separate. Would we be able to separate the two?
Thank you. So the problem with this data is we've actually only got 2 Key Stage 4 secondaries that are maintained, and they are both grammar schools. So it would be a bit unfair to split them off and do a comparison against the academies, because they're selective by academic achievement. So we would be able to say to committee, maintained schools are doing really well, but the reality is there's two grammar schools that are maintained in the secondary sector. We do have all of the data below that, and we do bring that to committee as part of our reporting on outcomes for performance. So you'll get that in due course. As Martin says, once the data is 9 months old, we're allowed to put it in the public domain, and we bring it here. So you'll see that data as we move forward.
And just a second question. On the 5 measures that we haven't been meeting, is there any recommended strategies that we can put in place to reassure children, our residents, to, you know, further neglect those impacts towards our children? And are we seeing any kind of well-being trouble from any kind of social impact?
Thank you, Councillor Grantham. So, of the 5 measures, in several of them we're outperforming regional and national. So I think that what we've agreed with committee is that Councillor Oliver and I will review those targets and look at how we make them reflect the good work that's happening. The Key Stage 4 target and the exclusions targets we are doing everything, particularly exclusions. We are investing a lot, we are developing a lot, we are doing everything we can to bring those exclusions down. And I think we're fairly confident that when you get this report next year, you'll start to see the impact of this work, because again, this data is lagged. And then on the Key Stage 4 one, as I say, our levers are limited. We will be doing things. It's what we've outlined in the report. And certainly we'll take away the reflections of the committee and consider where we could go further and what it is that we could do. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Councillor Clark.
Thank you. On the sorry, on the permanent exclusions, as a governor, the decision's not taken lightly at all. And it's, you know, horrible when you got to sit there and tell some child that they're going to be excluded, or tell the parent. But I do hope this service is going to continue to be driven by what's best for the child, not what's best for the targets. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I can assure Councillor Clark we're very child-focused, and I think it's always really difficult because nobody wants to exclude. I completely agree with them. We do have schools that are excluding far more than the rest of schools in Lincolnshire. So I think we have to be honest about that. There are some schools who are excluding at a rate that would suggest that we can do more to help them. And that's what we're focused on, that's what we're targeting. I do accept that those schools are in areas of high deprivation, and that does bring challenges. You know, the correlation between the challenges that bring are really clear and evidence-based, but we do need to target those schools that we're seeing exclude above those rates, because those are the very children we want in their local school, the very children we want to be supported. So we need to look at how we support schools to support those children, and how we challenge schools where we don't think that support's been in place.
Thank you. That'd be very interesting to hear the outcome of that, Heather, because it's a very valid and important thing for our children. We don't want them just excluding out there on the streets, because more problems come from that, as we know. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? No. Thank you. Right, that concludes that session, that discussion. Thank you. I propose that the committee has reviewed the report and is satisfied with the Children's and Cultural Service level performance for 25-26 as at Q2. Can you please raise your hands if you agree? Thank you. That is unanimous. Thank you. We agree. Thank you. I think we've all earned a good break now. Thank you. We'll have a 10 minutes break. We'll be back for 10 to, please. Thank you. Thank you, Jess, thank you. So welcome back. I hope we're all refreshed and I hope we don't melt in this heat. Right, item 8, young people's supported accommodation. This item is on pages 43 to 122 and is for pre-decision scrutiny prior to a decision by the Executive Councillor for Children's Services between the 15th and the 19th of December 2025. So the actions required by the committee today are to consider the attached report and determine whether the committee supports the recommendations to the Executive Councillors for Children's Services as set out in the report. And secondly, to agree any additional comments to be passed on to the Executive Councillor in relation to this item. The report will be presented by Charlotte Gray, Head of Services, Children's Strategic Commissioning. We also have Paul Fisher, Head of Services, Children in Care, and Mark Rainey, Strategic Commissioning Manager, Children's Services, in attendance to help answer any questions. So over to you, Charlotte, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. County councils in England have a statutory duty to provide supported accommodation for children aged 16 and 17 who are in care or are homeless. County councils must also provide support to care leavers who are aged 18 plus to access suitable accommodation, although they do not have to directly provide accommodation itself. Supported accommodation refers to housing that is specifically designed for young people who need a safe place to live, as well as support to help them move to independence. Currently in Lincolnshire, our supported accommodation offer for young people includes 2 council-run supported accommodation provisions, which offers 10 beds, supported lodgings, who are host families. We have 11 placements currently available, and that service is being insourced from Bernardo's to the local authority from January 2026. We also have a commissioned youth housing service which offers up to 72 beds of supported accommodation, a mixture of shared and solo accommodation for our 16 and 17-year-old children in care, homeless young people, and some care leavers aged 18 to 21. We then have commissioned independent supported accommodation, which is used when the other capacity that I've just described is exhausted or it can't meet the particular needs of a child. And at the time of review, we had 12 of those placements. The table on page 48 of the pack shows the average cost per week of those placements, and you'll see that they can vary quite significantly. For children in care, Children's Services pays the rent element as well as the support element, whereas for care leavers age 18 plus and homeless young people, the rent and accommodation element is usually paid via benefits. Children's Services has completed a comprehensive review of its supported accommodation for young people, and the findings are set out in detail in the commissioning plan, which is appended to the papers. The review identified that over the last 5 years, we've had a rising demand for solo and self-contained units to meet the needs of our young people. In-house provision is demonstrating high occupancy, that it is cost-effective and high quality. Supported lodgings is the least expensive type of supported accommodation and offers a more family-style setting for our young people, which should be expanded when it's insourced to the council. The youth housing service generally performs well, but has faced cost pressures and occupancy issues, particularly for shared accommodation. The average occupancy has been 59 out of 72 beds available. The recruitment and retention of staff in the youth housing service has been a challenge, largely linked to pay and the significant increases that have been experienced with national living wage rises, and which is creating some of those cost pressures. And independent supported accommodation has been needed to be used more than we'd originally expected, and that's been due to matching issues. And it is very expensive and should really only be used in exceptional circumstances. Overspends have been forecast in 25-26 on commission supported accommodation. That's mainly driven by the use of that independent supported accommodation, but new burdens funding that the local authority receives specifically for duties in relation to supported accommodation have mostly offset that cost pressure. Ofsted regulation for supported accommodation for 16 and 17-year-old children in care is helping to improve quality, but is also creating some limitation on placements for children with more complex needs. And multi-agency support for education, employment and training, mental health and substance misuse should continue to be available across all supported accommodation settings. So the report, based on those findings, sets out the recommended model going forward. The council already provides a number of in-house services that are recommended as part of the model, and will seek to implement the relevant recommendations on those elements. So what the recommended model includes an increase in in-house provision. So we are looking or recommending the development of a business case for a further 5-bed supported accommodation unit in the Boston area. A capital bid will be considered through a separate decision-making process, and we would expect capital payback within 2.7 years. We are looking to expand supported lodgings from 11 to at least 15 placements, with aspirations for higher than that wherever possible. Both of those options are proven to deliver strong outcomes and cost effectiveness. We are looking to introduce a new floating support offer for our care leavers age 18 plus as part of our Lincolnshire Leaving Care Service. This outreach model will help young people as they transition into adulthood, sustain tenancies and prevent accommodation breakdown. This will meet our statutory duties and supports transition when without using any regulated supported accommodation beds. We're then recommending the commissioning of a youth housing service. That would be 44 units, so 40 shared units and 4 solo accommodation that would be self-contained with 24/7 support. The locations will remain as they currently are across Lincoln, Boston and Grantham. We're looking at a contract term of up to 5 years with an indicative contract value of 10.49 million across the whole contract period. This approach offers a more predictable cost management for the local authority, and we will put in flexibility to adapt capacity and improve occupancy rates. The contract won't include supported accommodation for care leavers age 18 plus. We will seek to commission a provider with access to appropriate move-on accommodation for those young people, and the new recommended floating support service will provide that the support requirement to the accommodation that our care leavers age 18 plus are living. We are then also recommending to commission additional supported accommodation for solo. We will look to for 2 lots of 4-bedded units, so 8 extra beds in total for young people whose needs require that solo accommodation. And we're looking at an indicative cost per lot of 3.548 million over a 5-year contract. This will reduce reliance on costly independent supported accommodation placements, support local market development, and support step down from high-cost residential care. We also want to continue to have a compliant procurement mechanism where we do buy independent supported accommodation, but this would only be by exception. There are some young people for whom living in the county does not meet their needs, and so we still need a mechanism through which to buy that accommodation. But there would be approval by exception for the use of independent supported accommodation. Overall then, that means our capacity will reduce from 93 to 83 beds. There will be less shared accommodation and more solo units, which correlates with the needs of young people. The reduction accounts for the earlier move on of our 18 plus care leavers. There is a clear decision in our recommendations not to overbuy beds and to have void beds for which we're then left paying a charge for empty beds. But we will be building in flexibility into the contract so that as needs may fluctuate over time, we can increase or decrease volumes, change locations, etc., as the needs of the young people dictate. So the anticipated costs for the commission service elements that we're recommending are on an annual basis 3.67 million. That can be met within the existing budgets and offers a cost avoidance by providing more children in care with the opportunity to step forward appropriately from residential care into supported accommodation. Hopefully, the Scrutiny Committee will support the recommendations within the paper and authorise the procurement of the youth housing service, solo accommodation and the mechanism for independent supported accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that report, Charlotte. Do we have any questions? Councillor Daesh, please.
Thank you for the report. I'd like to ask, the report highlights on page 108 that in relation to the youth housing service, there is a limited marketplace for providing and delivering large-scale supported accommodation service within Lincolnshire. How will you ensure that the council obtains value for money when procuring the youth housing service contract?
Thank you. So, I mean, we've had a look at benchmarking the costs, both to make sure that in terms of what we're forecasting, it's both reasonable and sustainable in the long run, and then looking at trying to build in some inflationary uplift there within defined parameters, so that we'll rein in any increases in future years. We will set an indicative price, so we can preclude any bids that come in over and above the set budget. But one of the things that we're looking to do in terms of having lot 2 and 3, where we've got much smaller provisions, so by having the multiple lots, we're hoping we'll be able to attract different providers to bid. Particularly that may include small, medium enterprises that might not be able to deliver, say, 40 units, but will be able to deliver 4 units of accommodation. And that should then increase the amount of competition that we'll have. One of the other things, as we said, around trying to make sure we've got value for money is looking at trying to tailor the number of units themselves to meet the current demand levels. That way we'll have some fuller occupancy, we'll include the options to flex, and hopefully that'll reduce some of the voids that we're experiencing at the moment, so that the vast majority of the money that we're spending is going towards the actual support services rather than on empty beds.
Thank you. Just one point. On page 55, the report mentions there will be an overall 11.8% reduction in bed capacity due to the loss of 11 beds. How confident are you that there will be no long-term negative impacts on the result of the loss?
So in terms of the reduction, that's been based on looking at occupancy trends over the life of the contract so far, and also looking at projections in terms of the number of young people that we would expect to require supported accommodation over the time period that we can foresee. And I think it's fair to say that sometimes there may be fluctuations. What we don't want to do is overbuy beds at this point in time and then potentially have to pay a void charge for those beds being vacant. So what we will do is within the procurement, we will make sure that we will go out to buy what it is that we need now, with some flexibility built in. So it does allow some flexibility, but equally we will be able to tailor and increase the number of units with the preferred provider at the rate that's been agreed through the procurement process as we go on. Throughout the through the different contracts. The reduction itself is obviously due to the data that we've talked about, but also with that change to the 18 plus model for care leavers of that age. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Chair. The youth housing service at the moment is contracted out to a registered charity. Do they cover the damage incurred within the properties, or is that posted back to LCC? And if so, do we have a separate budget for that? Thank you.
In terms of sort of day-to-day damage, that's covered by the charity themselves. So one of the things that they are able to get from the district councils is intensive housing management, which is more than what you would normally get, say, in housing benefit. And some of that will go towards those accommodation costs that they may incur from damages. Obviously, if the damages were quite severe, then it might mean a conversation between us as the commissioner and them as the provider around what the nature of the damage is and why it's happened and whether or not we might need to contribute towards that. But general day-to-day damages are covered by the contract itself.
Thank you. Councillor Grantham, please.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte. I'm looking on page 56 on the proposed costs. Obviously, we see on the 25 to 26 there was a £122,000 loss, and I see that you've done a new model which obviously stalemates that. What is this new model, and what strategies have we put place in this, and are you confident with this new model to actually able to sustain the accommodation types coming for future?
I think, as we were alluding to earlier, we've tried to base the new model in terms of the costings around the benchmark costs that we know. So we've seen where other authorities have commissioned solo placements. So we've got a good idea of what that may look like. And also we know from our own experience around supported accommodation, both the independent supported accommodation, but the youth housing itself, we've got a really good idea of how the costs are made up, what's needed to staff it, and what those costs may therefore be. Most of the overspend that we're experiencing at the moment is in the independent supported accommodation market, and that's where we're going out for individual placements, and to a certain extent the market will dictate the price on that. And what we're looking to do through the solo accommodation is have a contract whereby we've got set costs for 8 beds. Plus we'll have 4 within the youth housing model as well. So by having those set costs, we're taking away some of the vagaries of market pricing, and that's where hopefully we'll get the break even in terms of what we've indicated with the budgets and the income from the Section 31 grant.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Just one I'd like to ask, please. On page 50, it's saying about the Ofsted report asked, August report asked for assurance around placement of young people in solo accommodation. Can you tell us what the main problem was there, what they wanted reassurance about, and perhaps how you're going about this, please, ready for the next inspection?
Yeah, Paul, feel free to jump in if I misquote anything. But since the new Ofsted regulations came into place for supported accommodation in 2023, there's been a real emphasis from Ofsted that we shouldn't be placing children aged 16 and 17 in supported accommodation, if they're in care, in supported accommodation, if their needs are such that they require a residential or foster care placement. And so there's been it's been a bit of a rocky time, I think, for providers in terms of trying to determine the need level and whether a child requires care support or supported accommodation. So locally, we do a lot of work in terms of us determining whether the needs of the child are a support or care need before we would even identify that a placement should go into supported accommodation, and then working with the provider to make sure that that's an appropriate placement. Now, the inspections have only just started for supported accommodation across the country, and so what we're seeing is the beginnings of those conversations coming around, is it an appropriate placement? And Ofsted, they found absolutely that they didn't question whether any children were appropriately placed or not. And that's the same within our own in-house setting, which has been inspected too. But there was a lot of conversations and focus around that, and that was one of the main. It wasn't the main thing that came out of the inspection, but that was one of the things. That was that rub of that, the conversation around care and support.
Thank you. Can I just add? As Charlotte has indicated, I think it's been Ofsted and providers finding their feet in terms of what is care, what is support. Now, obviously, members will be aware that for young people, that sometimes that they need support, but actually it may drift into care for short periods of time. one of the things that Ofsted always needs to be reassured of is actually what's the plan? What are we going to do to actually support that young person to bring them back down to support rather than care, and what's the timescale around that? Now, just to reassure members in terms of the current NEST provision, we've been doing a lot of work with NEST in terms of their findings and about how we actually work with them to make sure the right young people are placed within the provision. Some of this is around developing a care versus support matrix. Some of this is about obviously working in terms of the referral process. It also feeds into the work that we're doing within children's services, trying not to get too technical, but around the pathway planning and the valuing care toolkit, which identifies not only needs of our young people, but actually their ability in terms of resilience and independence, which gives a clear indication about our young people's ability to cope, but also where we need to get to in terms of kind of improving that. So I think from a local authority point of view, it's really kind of a work in progress with Ofsted. We do find with providers that obviously they do an absolutely sterling job with our young people both in and out of county, and it's quite right that Ofsted question whether it's care or whether it is support, and we need to be robust both in terms of our responses to Ofsted, but actually clear with ourselves that we are in terms of actually it might go into care, but we bring it back down to support, and if we can't, then we do look at residential placements. It has to be the appropriate placement for that young person in order for them to move on.
Was there any other comments there? Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Charlotte, very much. Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you. Sorry, I just wondered if there's any repetition, but I just wanted some assurance that the floating support service has the necessary capacity, resource and expertise to prevent homelessness or tenancy breakdown for the vulnerable group.
Thank you. So this is it's a new part of the service. So they will be looking to recruit staff specifically into those roles. We've modelled the capacity based on the number of care leavers who currently under the model that we have now would benefit from a floating support offer. And then worked out the establishment that's required to support that volume of young people. So in terms of capacity, we're confident. In terms of skill, they will be staff that are specifically employed with the right skill to do that. And I think we're confident that we can recruit staff with that skill set. And one of the benefits of it being part of the in-house Lincolnshire Leaving Care Service is that as needs change, as demographics change, etc., we can be really quite responsive to that. And so it's something that will always be kept an eye on as part of the management of the Leaving Care Service. Thank you.
Thank you for that assurance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to take this opportunity to just give a little bit of promotion to our supported lodgings. So we talk about fostering a lot. Well, supported lodgings isn't the same as fostering. So with supported lodgings, young people are seen as members of your household rather than members of your family. And it's about giving them support and guidance rather than full-time care and supervision. So all it really takes is an open heart, a spare room, and the genuine desire to make a difference, and you will be helping a young person gain practical life skills and helping them move to the next step in terms of living independently. So I have been on BBC Radio Lincolnshire talking about this, so I thought, why not utilise this opportunity to tell you all a little bit more about supported lodgings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Oliver. Yes, we just need to stop thinking about it and just do it, don't we? Thank you. Councillor Grantham, please.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know who to direct this question to, but on page 70, one of the things that concern me is the new Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bills that are coming out in 2025. I believe that's still coming through Parliament. Obviously, there's going to be leavers up to the age of 25. How is this going to impact the local authorities, and is there any additional funding that's coming from central government, since it is their bill that's coming through to help kind of leverage any of this sort of improving, early years and all that stuff?
Thank you, Councillor Grantham. So care leavers are already supported up to the age of 25, but you're right, the new duty is on us to provide staying close arrangements. And those are arrangements where young people can stay close to the place that they were looked after so that they can maintain that relationship. We already, I'll glance at Paul and hopefully he'll nod at me, we already do fairly well on that measure. And so that's not something we're worried about, but it is a new duty. You're absolutely right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Is there any other comments, questions anyone would like to make, please? Okay, thank you very much for that. So I propose that we support the 4 recommendations to the Executive Councillor for Children's Services and that our comments be passed on to the Executive Councillor. Can I please have a seconder, please? Councillor Parkinson, thank you. So the comments from the committee's discussion on this report have been recorded by Tracy Johnson, Senior Scrutiny Officer, for passing on to the Executive Councillor. So we will now vote on this item. All those in favour, raise your hand, please. I think that's a unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's carried. Item 9, Special Guardianship Order Procedure. This item is on pages 123 to 164 and is for pre-decision scrutiny prior to a decision by the Executive on the 6th of January 2026. So the actions required by the committee are to first consider the attached report and to determine whether the committee supports the recommendations to the Executive as set out in the reports, and secondly agree any additional comments to be passed on to the Executive in relation to this item. The report will be presented by Nicola Brangham, Head of Service, Fostering and Adoption. Over to you, Nicola, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Hopefully you've all had an opportunity to read the report, but essentially I just wanted to set out for you the key requirements that the Council must fulfil in terms of their statutory duties. Around the financial support assessments in accordance with the regulations and the statutory guidance for prospective special guardians and those that hold a special guardianship order. We have undertaken a review of the policy in line with some judgments that have been delivered in other local authorities, and in order to ensure that Lincolnshire County Council is meeting its full requirements, we have done that through this process. So I just wanted to clarify and confirm that obviously in terms of a special guardianship order, this is one of the most effective ways in which a young person will exit care and their child in care status. It's an order which provides one or more person with parental responsibility who will be able to act in that way. We've seen over the years, and you will see in my report as well, that there's been a steady and significant growth in this area. And to date, having reviewed the figures from the 1st of April, we are already ahead in terms of the number of orders compared to last year. So what that's telling me is about the support that we're offering from the front door, around my colleagues who are here this morning, about being able to articulate effectively what a special guardian can expect in terms of those assessments. So these assessments are quite complex pieces of work. They are not something that is a one-size-fits-all, and I suppose that's what I really want to emphasise to you this morning, that each assessment that's undertaken is looking at the unique circumstances of each carer and of those children. Obviously, as part of this process, we have conducted a consultation exercise as well, and you've all had an opportunity to read the feedback from the engagement report. Now, what I would say is that it's clear that there was some feedback that we've obviously accepted and have implemented in terms of what we're putting in our policy. The fundamental issue that is the challenge for all local authorities is around the difference and key principle around the legal status of a child when they move from being fostered to being with their special guardian, and that is where the clear fundamental difference is. And I think that that is probably the area where people have had some difficulties understanding how one thing compared to the other. So this approach really is about enabling those prospective guardians and those that already hold an order can understand what they can expect and at what time. So in terms of our support, the support around these assessments starts right at the very beginning and runs the whole way through the duration. Each year, every special guardian is entitled to an annual review, or if their circumstances should change, we will review those particular circumstances in line with the statutory guidance. So I have, as I say, I think summarised, hopefully effectively, the matters that are before you this morning. So really this is about assuring the Council that the approach that we are taking is in accordance with the statutory guidance and also in line with our KC Council advice. And if there are any questions, thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Sorry, Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you. Yeah, the consultation showed that a significant 26% did not understand the updated process. Where and in what format will the full, clear and simple explanation of the financial calculation be published and made accessible to prospective and current special guardians? Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully, as you will have seen, there is a policy attached within the material, and having reflected on the feedback that we received, you know, we're not all mathematicians, and we need people to be able to understand exactly how we've got from A to B and how these things are actually worked out. So we've given some hopefully helpful examples to show exactly how we do what we do and to show those calculations. All of the supervising social workers, so those are the staff from the fostering service and also social workers from the frontline teams, will also be appraised of all of this. They will also be able to articulate and explain it. I have also reviewed all of the written material that goes to special guardians in terms of the offer letters, etc., and the reviews, and I've ensured that those explain exactly how the calculations have been arrived at, and will also ensure that where there are any, if there is any other new information that I need to be aware of, that those are also factored into any key decisions that I may need to make.
Thank you for that. Councillor Parkinson, please.
Thank you. Just to come to the section where it talks about the funded legal advice. So is that part of the service that gets used very often at all?
It is.
It is.
It is. So if I can just explain that element, we're not talking about huge legal bills. I suppose that's what I need to make clear. The policy allows for one round of legal advice. There is a set amount that is prescribed for that, and it is a requirement that any prospective guardian who is wishing to undertake and offer this level of commitment, we want them to have ensured that they've had that independent legal advice, that they understand fully what they're entering into, that they understand the implications, that they're able to manage all of those things. So that is an area that I oversee as well.
Absolutely, completely agree. And the reason why I asked is obviously I do think it's important that before anybody enters into this, that they get that representation. I just wondered whether or not there's any provision within the council to be able to offer that advice, or whether it has to be done independently as a third party, I assume.
It does. It needs to be independent.
Thank you very much. Councillor Grantham, please.
Yeah, thank you. And just reading on page 170 that there's a lack of suitable placement in the right locations. So in relation to that, what are the proposed children's home and what is criteria for the identification of the correct site, and are there any specific areas of Lincolnshire that are being targeted? Sorry if I said that too fast.
No, it's okay. Thanks, Councillor Grantham. We're gonna, Laura's going to come on to that in a little minute, so can we hold that question and come on to that in a little bit? Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Are there any other questions at all, please? Okay, Councillor Grantham.
Yeah, and also in the report it's on about the 2-bed step forward children's home and development. What evidence demonstrates that the 2-bed will provide sufficient capacity for Lincolnshire, and how confident are you that in this new home will be a future-proof against any increased demands for therapeutic settings, especially given that the 2-child benefit cap's been increased as well?
Thanks, Councillor Grantham. I think that you're just jumping a bit ahead of us onto that next paper. So, and it's because you've done all that reading and discussion in advance. So Laura will present that in a minute, and they will go through your questions, but we just need to make a decision on this one and then move on to that. Is that okay? Thanks ever so much. Cheers.
Thank you very much. He's an eager bunny. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your reports there. Any other questions? Councillor Parkinson, please.
Yeah, just on page 158, when it talks about the expenditure that's legally, this included in the calculations, it mentions that you don't include IVAs, but they're a legal agreement to obviously help prevent bankruptcy. So what we do not take into account, we do not include IVA, store cards, credit cards.
If I come in, Nicola, and then you can correct me, it's just at the top of the page that Councillor Parker.
Yeah, 158.
158. So there is guidance around what we include and what we don't include, and what it was important within the external advice that we got was that we set that out clearly in the policy, so that we're consistent in that, so that we're not doing different things for different people.
It just feels a little bit harsh when, obviously, someone that's going through an IVA, it's a form of insolvency where they've taken a decision to go through that 5-year procedure. So it does seem a little bit harsh to say they're not going to include that into account because they're legally bound to pay it or they're petitioning for bankruptcy. So it's a little bit harsh, I would say. But
so we're not. So we obviously aren't suggesting they shouldn't be paying it, but I guess we wouldn't take it into account when we said how much the council would give them for the. So they're the decisions that we're making, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you, Heather. Was there anything else there from anybody, please? Okay, thank you. So, suggested proposal. I propose that we support the recommendation to the executive and that our comments be passed on to the executive. Can I please have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Daesh. Thank you. The comments from the committee discussion on this report have been recorded by Tracy Johnson, Senior Scrutiny Officer, for passing on to the executive. We will now vote on this item, please. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I think we're all agreed on that, so that's carried. Thank you very much. Item 10, Children in Care Transformation Step Forward Children's Home. This item is on pages 165 to 208 and is for pre-decision scrutiny prior to a decision by the Executive Council for Resources and the Executive Council for Children's Services between the 8th and the 19th of December 25. So the actions required by the committee are, first, to consider the attached report and to determine whether the committee supports the recommendations to the Executive Councils for Resources and the Executive Council for Children's Services as set out in the report, and secondly, to agree any additional comments to be passed on to the Executive Councillors in relation to this item. The report will be presented by Laura Bonner, Head of Service, Children's Transformation. Over to you, Laura. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. The papers before you propose to expand of our in-house children's residential provision through the continued capital investment to procure and refurbish a 2-bed Ofsted registered children's home. It's temporarily named the Step Forward Children's Home, and why it's temporary is because, subject to the decision, we would seek to get our children to name the home. This home is intended to provide short-term therapeutic care of up to 6 weeks, but it can be a maximum of 12 weeks for children who've experienced trauma and require accommodation. In terms of... Oh, sorry. Is that better? Sorry. I didn't want to be too loud. So the challenges that we're facing are not local to Lincolnshire. These are national challenges faced. In Lincolnshire, we're always aspiring to obtain a suitable regulated placement for our children in care. However, at times this does prove a challenge due to the volatile market conditions with rising placement costs and limited availability, which places a significant financial pressure upon our independent non-maintained residential budget, and that this has contributed to an unsustainable deficit in our children in care expenditure and further reinforcing the need for a strategic in-house solution. Positively, we do have a lower history of demand across social care and a strong balance of our internal provision for placements compared to the national average, and that is reflected in the papers before you. And it continues to be reflected within our comparator group, and despite a change of the local authorities within that group, which took place this year, we do still benchmark the best. At Q2 of this financial year, we have 80.4% of children in care residing in family-based placement types. This proposed home complements our existing long-term residential provision by offering a specialist short-term intervention, and it aligns with our statutory duties around placement sufficiency and supports the broader children in care transformation efforts. Within the papers before you, you'll see the weekly operating cost per bed, the annual operating budget, and we already have some of the budget for the annual operating budget, with the remainder being offset by cost avoidance from external independent placements. There's one-off funding streams I've already identified for the setup costs of the home. But I do just want to highlight that whilst the independent non-maintained residential budget is overspent, this home is not the sole solution to tackling that challenge. We have linked to the children in care transformation work, different schemes taking place to simultaneously reduce that budget pressure. We've considered various different options in the paper. Do nothing, that isn't recommended, as it's not going to change the situation that we're currently facing in terms of using high cost external placements. We also place greater pressure on the budget. We have explored whether we commission an external agency to deliver this service. Again, that's not recommended. There are high weekly costs associated with that, mobilisation delays, and the majority are unregulated arrangements, so therefore we will still not address our regulatory requirement, and we also have limited strategic control. So our proposed step forward home, it is a competitive cost. It's regulated, it's local, we strategically can support and influence that, and it's aligning with regional benchmarking. We have explored within the region what other homes take place within other local authorities. One was a commissioned arrangement and one was an in-house provision, and we align very competitively with that cost. So the recommendation before is to proceed with a step forward children's home. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor, thank you, Laura. Thank you. Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you very much for the report. I'm just wondering what the contingency plan for a child whose needs are not sufficiently stabilised within those 12 weeks maximum that you've outlined in the report, given the goal is to prevent escalation to a long-term residential care. And the model involves the intensive multi-agency support. Which specific external agencies have formally agreed to ring-fence resources to deliver this intensive support model? And is the cost of this input factored into the home's annual operating budget? Thank you.
Yep. In terms of the cost being included, yes, it would be through our LPFT colleagues. We already have 2 therapeutic children's homes within Lincolnshire that operate very successfully with that therapeutic model. So we've got a tried and tested model in place. And this home, in terms of the therapeutic intervention, I think having that from the outset, from the placement in an emergency situation, is really key in order to support children to regulate and support them with the trauma that they've experienced. Positively have excellent internal working systems where we do work very closely together to support children to move on. So we would always be trying to work to move them on. Ideally, we seem to average around 4 weeks, so that's why the 6-week time frame has been put in and up to 12 weeks. But should we be in a situation where that child did not have an identified placement, we would not be making them homeless. We would be working, if we needed to contact Ofsted to extend and alter our a registered provision for a temporary basis for that one child, we would make them aware of that. But we are quite confident through our internal in-house provision we would be able to come up with an alternative solution, or if we needed to access the independent market, we'd be preferring to enter into a fostering household within the independent market than a residential.
Can I just add to that, Chair? Is that okay? So I think it's a really good question, because I think that Laura's answered it really technically right, but actually we really want to avoid that. Because if we start to say, well, this child's really settled here, then what we've done is open up a normal children's home, and we will be back in front of you again to open up a normal children's home, trust me. But this one is a short stay. It's about crisis intervention. So I think Laura's obviously absolutely right. We will make sure that child is safe, but we will review the model at that point, because if we're not moving children on, then the cost benefits that we're telling you that we're going to have will not be materialised, and children will not be moving into settled places. So one of the things we're being really clear with all the teams involved in this is that that is a failure of our model if that happens. And it may happen, because children don't fit neatly to our models no matter how much we would like them to. But if it's happening too frequently, then the model isn't doing what we've designed it to do. It's a great question, and I just think it's important to be really transparent about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I think Councillor Grantham, you can come in with your question now. Thank you.
Well, firstly, apologies. Didn't mean to skip a whole agenda, so apologies for that. Yeah, so I was just looking at page 170 about the national market pressures on the lack of suitable placement in the right locations. So therefore, in relation to the location of the proposed children's home, what is the criteria for that identification of the correct site, and are there any specific areas of Lincolnshire that are being targeted?
No, thank you. So at the time, the location is not determined for this home. However, what we are wanting is a more central-based home within Lincoln or the surrounding areas, and that it's about having that close proximity to Lincoln. The reason for this is that it's a home that's going to be serving the whole of at Lincolnshire County Council, so it needs to be a reasonable distance for all the districts. Whilst it's not likely to be even distance for all districts, it will enable children to maintain their local links, such as school and family time. When we do consider locations, a location assessment review takes place, and that takes into consideration safety, proximity of schools, health services, good transport links, and ensuring for example, compliance with Ofsted, to ensure compliance with Ofsted standards. Our properties will be scored against a decision matrix, considering suitability and adaptability. It also considers, for example, like roads, and we would link in with Lincolnshire Road Safety to inform them. Same for rivers, we'd look at level of supervision and what needs to be put in place. Train tracks, we would link in with Network Rail. And we do seek to ensure that the local neighbours and community are notified via the normal notification routes. And when we'd opened our newest home, we hosted a session at an alternative venue to provide information on that home, which was very well received in the community. And our homes managers also foster relationships within the local community.
And just my second question. The report is recommending that a two-bed step-forward children's home is developed. What evidence demonstrates that a two-bed home will provide sufficient capacity for Lincolnshire, and how confident are you that this new home will future-proof against any increase in demands for therapeutic settings?
Yeah. So our demand analysis, it does show that typically we do require sort of 1 to 2 emergency beds at any given time. As I'd said before, positively 80.4% of our children are in family-based placements, so this proposed home complements this by addressing the short-term needs without creating unnecessary surplus capacity. In terms of flexibility to future-proof it, the statement of purpose, as Heather's referred to there, we will be reviewing the model. It is intended to be short-term, so that we will be very clear and strict on the need for that progress and momentum to take place, but we can review the statement of purpose and the function of that home should we need to. If there was occupancy issues in terms of low usage, staffing, we could redeploy them to our wider residential estate. We will be monitoring demand through our Children in Care Transformation Programme that would also allow adaptation if trends change. I do feel in terms of what we are currently experiencing, I'm not concerned about the level of occupancy being low. I think we will have high usage given the need for placements.
Can I add to that? Because again, I think Councillor Grantham, it's a really pertinent question. I think this is not the answer to everything. We have got a whole Children in Care's transformation programme, SGOs, and getting that absolutely clear in our policy is really important because they're a big part of our solution. The short stay is part of our solution. Foster care and staying close and supported lodgings are all part of the solution. And we've been through that kind of high-level plan with you, and what you'll start to see over the next 6 months to 12 months is decision after decision coming through about now we need to make a change here and now we need to make a change there, because the scale of placements pressures is significant, and we can't rely on the market because the market is charging significant costs for provision that we feel we could deliver better ourselves at a reasonable cost. So this is, you know, the beginning of a suite of decisions that we're going to make. And I think you're right, this is not the answer to everything. It's the answer to one part of our problem. And we'll need to keep talking about it. And you'll know that because you'll know that we've been at OSMB around our budget pressures. You'll know that we've got difficult decisions to make around the budget because actually we are, as Laura said, we're overspending in this area. And we need to get it right. I think we're probably going to have to invest more in this area in the budget. I think those cost pressures are going to have to be met. But we also need to be thinking about, are there things we could do differently, because we haven't been in this position previously. It's national, it's not a Lincolnshire position. The market nationally is exhausted, I think, and you know, there's just not enough capacity.
Thank you very much. It's not one size fits all, is it, with this? It's a big, huge package, but thank you. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask, what's the staff ratio going to be? Thank you.
The staff ratio, it consists of a registered home manager and assistant manager, and then staffing levels across registered care officers levels 1, 2 and 3. It's not, there was 4 models that I'd considered before we got to this model. There's probably about 8 in total within that, so it's not a high staffing model, but it's sufficient for the staffing ratio required for the children within this arrangement, and with it being not known the level of need that the children may have when they're entering, which is different to our wider residential estates where an assessment and planning to move in has already taken place. So the ratios in those homes will be slightly different to this home. Yes. For agileness, yes, we will be able to respond to the needs of children within that home.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Laura, for the report and for comments from everybody and the good questions that have been asked today. Are there any other questions that anybody wishes to ask? Thank you. So I propose that we support the 2 recommendations to the Executive Councillor for Resources and the Executive Council for Children's Services, and that our comments be passed on to the Executive Councillors. Can I please have a seconder? Councillor Parkinson, thank you. The comments from the committee discussion on this report have been recorded by Tracy Johnson, Senior Scrutiny Officer, for passing on to the Executive Councillors. Okay, we will now vote on this item. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I think that's unanimous as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Item 11, Boston Hawthorne Tree Primary School roof replacement. This item is on pages 209 to 230 and is for pre-decision scrutiny prior to a decision by the Executive Councillor for Resources and the Executive Council for Children's Services between the 10th and the 19th of December 2025. The actions required by the committee today are to consider the attached report and to determine whether the committee supports the recommendations to the Executive Councillor for Resources and the Executive Council for Children's Services as set out in the report. Agree any additional comments to be passed on to the Executive Councillors in relation to this item. Just to remind the committee that Appendix C is exempt. If the committee wishes to discuss this appendix, we will need to vote to move into exempt session. Can we please have questions and comments on the open report, appendices A and B first, and if there are any questions or comments on Appendix C, we can can we please leave them until after we have voted to go into exempt session? Thank you. The report will be presented by Dave Pennington, Head of Capital Projects and Professional Services. We also have Neil Cattle, Construction Projects Manager, Corporate Property, and Wendy Lanes, Project Manager. No, Wendy. Sorry, I just realised we've had apologies from Wendy. And to help answer any questions. So over to you, Dave. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this relatively brief and then invite questions after that. So Boston Hawthorn Tree, the roof at the school, the primary school there, is effectively beyond the end of its useful life. We need to replace it or replace most of it, the flat roof sections, in the coming 12 months. You'll see in the report on page 212 that various alternatives have been considered. Do nothing is clearly not an option because the roof, as the report suggests, the roof is beyond economical repair, and if we carry on patching it, we can't guarantee that it will stay watertight. So effectively what we'll have is a situation where water gets into the school and starts causing damage, and water is the enemy of all properties. We did look at an alternative design to try and keep the costs down on this one. What our professional services and technicians, what they did is they looked at, could we just overlay the roof? And what that means in simple terms is leave the existing roof in situ and then put a new roof on top. When we got into the design of that, it turns out that that's not possible because structurally the school cannot take the additional weight. So we've had to go for a design that's proposed in the paper. Just to give you a little bit of a background, we do condition surveys on all of our properties, and that's every 5 years. And what that does is that identifies the condition of all of our properties when they reach, and they're categorized A, B, C, and D, D being the worst. When they reach D, they then work into a capital repairs and maintenance program of which this project forms a part. So this is one of many projects that come forward for repairs and maintenance. You'll see on pages 223 and 225 some photos of the existing condition of the, on 223 page, photos of the existing condition of the roof. As you can see, they speak for themselves. It is in very poor condition. In fact, some of the roof lights, well, they're not letting any light in. They are just a opaque plastic shell. They're very degraded. And you'll see on page 225 the extent of the roof that we're replacing. So it is around just under 1,500 square meters. So it is quite extensive. And again, just to contextualize this for the committee, it is not one big flat roof. It's over several adjoining roofs at depths at various different levels. The work is complex in the way that we have to strip the roof off, put the new system on, make sure it joins at the very varying different levels well. There's some windows that will need to be replaced because we have to insulate the roof and bring it up to the latest standards, and we have to remove a couple of redundant items, including a water tank. So I don't propose to go into any more detail, but I'll leave it there and invite any questions from the committee.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you. So do we have any questions, please? Okay, Councillor Parkinson, please.
Just on the, I suppose, the structural rigidity of it. So has there been any water ingress into any of the areas of the school because of the issues with the roof? As in, obviously when the surveyors have looked at it, there's no other concerns at all other than just the roof?
So there's been multiple repairs carried out over the last 10 years. They have been regarding kind of blister work issues and some damage with leaks as well. So yes.
Yeah, so there has been water that's gone into the school, but it has been repaired and fixed. But we're at the point now where we just can't keep repairing the roof.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you. Just a brief question. Has any consideration been given to installing solar panels to help reduce the energy costs for the school? As a roof is a very good real estate for solar panels rather than, say, an agricultural field?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Robinson. So the school already has an existing solar panel array. So on one of the drawings, you'll see it has a mixture of pitched roofs like that, and flat roofs. On the pitched roof, there is quite a significant solar panel array on it already. So it already has it. The roof system is designed such that it is compatible So should there be a project, and we've already had discussions with members of the executive about this, and they've asked us to look into this in the future as well. So the roof system is compatible. We're not putting solar panels on it because the funding that we're using is specifically for repairs and maintenance, and adding solar panels would be an improvement at this stage, but it does have the capacity potentially in the future to support that.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cleaver, please. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could just draw your attention to alternatives considered number 3 on page 212. You've just said that this project was already identified as a category D in the normal buildings condition survey routine 5 years. So if it was already known, why am I in a situation where we didn't have time to do a mini competition?
Yeah, so what happens is it is still competitively tendered. It's just that the mini competition route is slightly longer than the route that we've chosen to go down. So the way that we go down is we call off what's called an existing framework, and that framework has suppliers that have already been competitively tendered. So we choose, so it shortcuts about 6 to 8 weeks. And because we have a 12-month window in which we need to do the work, we didn't really have 6 or 8 weeks to allow a further mini competition amongst those suppliers. So just to give you some assurance, it was competitively tendered in the sense that the framework had already done some competition. And then there's a further competition, which is in the process that we've followed, which is basically when we've designed the package with the contractor, they go out to a supply chain for all the specialist parts, and those are competitively tendered as well. So, and they come back to my team, and my team verify all of those packages for value for money against the different suppliers, and that's how we come to you as the paper details and demonstrate value for money of the overall scheme.
Thank you. Councillor Grantham, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Thanks for that report. So on page 218, obviously it's going to take from April to September 2026. What we're doing to minimise the disruption there, because obviously that is going to be having children there at the same time as your roof repair.
So we've got a phased approach, which we're tackling the areas as we go, and what we're doing, we've involved CDM from a health and safety perspective to make sure that all measures are in place to make the areas safe for the children in terms of noise and disturbance carried out by the construction works.
So just coming off the back of that, what we do is we work with the school collaboratively with the head teacher, make sure that we avoid noisy works at exam period because we don't want to disrupt the education of the children. So again, just to give you some reassurance, we work very much hand in hand. It is a collaborative process, and as Neil has described, that's lent into a phased approach.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions, please? Okay. If there are no more questions on the open report of Appendix A and B, we will now move on to the exempt Appendix C. Can you please indicate if you'd like to speak on the exempt appendix, please? Okay. If there are no speakers, then we can move on to the proposal. I propose that we support the 2 recommendations to the Executive Councillor for Resources and the Executive Councillor for the Children's Services, and that our comments be passed on to the Executive Councillors. Can I please have a seconder? Councillor Daesh, thank you. The comments from the committee's discussion on this report have been recorded by Tracy Johnson, Senior Scrutiny Officer, for passing on to the Executive Councillor. Okay, we'll now vote on this item. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I think that is unanimous again. Thank you very much. That's carried. So item 12, Children and Culture Scrutiny Committee Work Programme. This item is on pages 231 to 240 of the agenda pack and sets out the work programme of the Children and Culture Scrutiny Committee. Actions required by the committee today are to first review and agree the committee's work programme as set out in this report, and secondly, to highlight for discussion any additional scrutiny activities which could be considered for inclusion in the work programme. The report will be presented by Tracy Johnson, Senior Scrutiny Officer. Over to you, Tracy. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman. I have no amendments to report to the work programme. The committee's next meeting is on the 23rd of January. The committee will be considering the budget proposals for Children's Services and the Culture Service for 26-27. It will also be considering a pre-decision item on mainstream schools funding for 26 and 27. Pre-decision in relation to school admissions policies and coordinated schemes. And another pre-decision in relation to quality and standards learning and development training programme. I'm happy to take any suggestions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any questions, please, Councillor?
Thank you. On next meeting, 23rd of January, would it be possible, I noticed we're looking at the budget proposals, and 23rd of January, that's quite tight for budget setting, given my knowledge of the budgeting cycle. I wonder if it's possible for us to have that paper earlier than usual, because there will be one heck of a lot in it. So for us to hold a more effective scrutiny, it would be really useful if that were possible, please.
Heather would like to come in there, please.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Cleaver. I think the if that were possible is the important part of your request. There's a lot of work to do. So as I think you're aware, we'll get our settlement. Usually they deliver it on Christmas Eve. And then we'll need to turn that report around, and the executive will have to consider the proposals. Then we'll have to write the paper. Then the children's elements will need to be drawn out, and the culture elements will need to be drawn out. So I think it's a perfectly reasonable request in principle. The if it's possible, I think, is something we'll need to consider. So what I'll do is I'll talk to Councillor Oliver and also the wider executive. I have a feeling officers rather than politicians will say it's too tricky, but we'll do everything we can to look at that.
Thank you. I do understand the constraints you're working on there.
Thank you for that as well. Thank you. Are there any other questions, please? Okay. So I propose that we approve the planned work programme subject to the consideration of any items highlighted in today's discussion. Can you please raise your hand if you agree? That's a unanimous again. Thank you very much, everyone. Well, that ends our meeting today. Thank you very much for all of your attendance and your reports and questions and answers. Thank you very much. And I do know that Councillor Grantham just wants to say a quick word to you all. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for such a productive year, including the officers and the rest of the council members. And for me and to you, happy Christmas, and have a lovely new year as well. And let's hope we can keep our production up and efficiency. So thank you very much to every single one of you.